Okay. Okay, we're recording.
Oh, good evening. Welcome to tonight's Health, Seniors, Human Services, Youth Education and Human Rights Committee meeting. My name is May and I'm the chair of the committee. Tonight, I will describe the agenda items to you, but before I do that, I will hand it over to Larissa, who will explain the procedures of the meeting.
All right, good evening. Welcome to our meeting. At this time, I would like to ask all non-committee members to sign in to the chat with their name and affiliation, if that's applicable, for our attendance. This evening, the meeting is being recorded, and we ask that if you are not speaking, to please remain on mute to eliminate background noise. Our chat this evening will only be used for technical issues and distribution of materials. So if you do have any technical issues, please reach out via chat. I am monitoring the chat and I can reach out and help you with any issues you have. If you have anything to distribute, drop that in the chat and I can share that with everyone as well. The chair during the meeting will be recognizing board members who've had their hands raised to speak, and only board members will be called on to speak. If you have, oh boy, I've lost my train of thought, sorry. So board members will be asked to, will be the only ones called on to speak this evening for our topics. And if you have any questions though, please feel free to drop them in the chat for me. Thanks, Ming.
Okay, thanks. So just to introduce the agenda, all of you have received the agenda or seen it on the website, but we're going to switch up the order a little bit. So first of all, we will approve them. We will have the roll call and approve the minutes. But the order that we are switching is that the first item after that will be the district attorney's presentation on alternatives to incarceration, and after that, we will have the presentation from ICE, the Institute for Collaborative Education. After that, we will have the presentation from BioBus. That's going to talk about their project. And then finally, we're going to talk about district needs and then CAB reports, and then we'll wrap up. Okay. So let me, so we have our two speakers here from the district attorney's office. That's Tony. Oh, could you tell me your last name?
Marderosian.
Marderosian and Kevin John Baptiste. So please take it away.
Great. Well, first, I just want to say thank you so much for having me. I hope everyone can hear me all right. If you have any trouble, just let me know.
Oh, wait, I'm sorry. Wait, let me move back. I just skipped something. Okay, so before we start your presentation, we need a roll call and approval of the minutes. Thomas?
Yes, we're going to get this party started. Maylee?
Yes.
Thomas, obviously, present. Larissa?
Present.
David?
Present.
Eric? Eric Diaz, did you make it yet? Shirley? Shirley Fantasy? Deborah? Deborah?
Don't see her in the group.
All
yet.
right. Tatiana? I don't think she made it yet.
Not yet.
Paul?
Present.
Heidi?
Not yet.
Ricky?
Here.
And Carmen. Ricky's here. Yes. Thank you.
Present.
Thank you.
Carmen.
We got Carmen. We're done.
Okay, great. Okay, thank you. Okay, so
Rick-
now
Ricky
we
is
can.
here. Did I hear from him? A present?
I do have Ricky. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, so now we can start with the presentation.
Great. So my name's Tony Martirosian. I'm the chief of the Alternatives to Incarceration unit at the Manhattan DA's office. And I am so happy to be here speaking with you. I was actually, before this came about, Kevin and I were chatting about trying to take the show on the road, so to speak, and let people in the community know about what the DA's office is doing to try to stop the cycle of recidivism and incarceration and get people the help that they need. So I prepared a brief PowerPoint presentation. I am going to try to go through it very quickly. As I said a few minutes ago, I could talk about what we're doing and also the challenges that we're facing for days, but I really want to leave time for questions at the end. And so I apologize if I move quickly. But certainly you'll have a good overview by the time I think I'm done sharing. So I'm going to share my slide, which means I might share my screen. I'm going to lose my ability to see you guys, I think, while I do this, or see most of you. Now, how do I make this my entire screen? I know how to do this. I think I go like this. Okay, can everyone see that? Yes, thumbs up. Okay, perfect. So let me jump in. All right, so we have an array of programming options available at the DA's office, both in the felony world and in the misdemeanor world. Judicial diversion, also known as drug court, and the alternatives to incarceration part, they are home to hundreds and hundreds of participants. Those are the ones I am going to focus on most tonight because they really service the largest amount of our felony population, felony offenders. But we also have a mental health court and a veterans treatment court. In addition, we have various misdemeanor programs. A well-known one that launched in February 2020 is the Manhattan Justice Opportunities Center. There's another program, Cases New Start, that we refer many misdemeanants to. And then we have an array of domestic violence programming, targeting DWIs. We have many pre-arraignment diversion programs. And what that basically means is after the police come into contact with you, if you are charged with a certain or would be charged with a certain type of misdemeanor and they believe that you have a substance use disorder, they can refer you to programming. And if you comply with kind of, a few sessions at least, you can avoid ever even having to be arraigned on the new case. Problem-solving courts, when I say problem-solving courts, I'm talking about things like judicial diversion, that's the drug court, Manhattan Mental Health Court, and Manhattan Veterans Treatment Court. These are very well-organized court parts, and they have well-established screening protocols. There are judges that sit in these parts day in and day out who attend special trainings and are experts in substance use disorders, mental health diagnoses. And in addition to knowledgeable judges, we have expert clinicians who work for the courts, the Office of Court Administration, and they conduct clinical assessments, trying to identify what a person's needs are and the treatment plan. They create a treatment plan that could best serve those needs. The DA's office, and I think this was certainly the right decision years ago, realized that it made sense to have prosecutors in these courtrooms who really this was their sole job, and they became experts in these needs and also in the type of treatment that works best. And so we have staff at the DA's office who are dedicated to these courtrooms, and they work very well. One of the major drawbacks, however, to these problem-solving courts has always been that they're narrow, their focus is narrow. And by that, I mean judicial diversion, for example. You have to be charged with a certain enumerated felony, and you have to have a substance use disorder. A mental health court, you have to be deemed seriously mentally ill to participate. There are many people who, for various reasons, have needs, but their needs cannot be solved in these problem-solving courts. And so as a result, we helped launch, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about it in a few slides, an Alternatives to Incarceration court part. And that court part was designed to basically catch all of the folks who need services, but who, for whatever reason, weren't eligible or appropriate for one of the more well-established problem-solving courts. And so the goal of the ATI unit, which Danny has been doing Danny is the DA's office. Danny has been doing programming for a very long time, but I would say in the last 4 to 5 years, we've really honed our craft, and we have come into line with really what we know about best practices today in these areas. And so the creation of the ATI unit a few years ago, really, it was designed to centralize all of these program dispositions that up until that point, many of them had been taking place in different courtrooms. And that wasn't ideal because not everyone was before a judge who understood, for example, the nature of a substance use disorder, and that relapse is often part of the recovery process. Not every judge understood that. Also, people were being treated differently depending on what court part they were in and receiving programming. So we wanted to centralize all program dispositions in one courtroom with a dedicated judge. We also, at the DA's office, historically, programming dispositions were very defense driven. And by that, I mean, often it was the defense attorney that was recommending the treatment program. It was the defense attorney who was providing updates to the court. And we really realized that, we needed to take hold of these program participants and make sure that the folks were going to the appropriate programs that would meet their needs and that we could trust, so that in the end, we could reduce recidivism, which is, of course, one of our primary goals. We also wanted to increase the use of programming throughout the office and the courthouse. We wanted to make sure, again, that we were familiar with programs throughout New York City and even beyond the 5 boroughs. Just let me back up for a second and say 3 years ago, when my supervisor created the unit, she actually took a year off from the DA's office and doing the work of a prosecutor. And she spent that year visiting countless programs throughout the region, not just substance use treatment programs and mental health programs, but sexual offender programs. She went to workforce development programs. I went with her on a tour through the homeless shelter so we could understand how that works. And so much of our population in these court parts struggle with housing instability. And she also went to countless trainings, again, to learn about the best practices for dealing with folks who have these needs, but are also in the criminal justice system and are here because they've committed crimes. And we have built out a unit where we have ADAs and social workers who really are experts in this area. We wanted to understand better the gaps in treatment, where people were falling through the cracks, and see if there was anything that we could do to try to improve those areas. We also wanted to come into line with best practices in the area of procedural justice. And procedural justice is everything from really quite simply calling people by their name, instead of saying, the defendant did this in the program, to say, Mr. Smith did this in the program, and to humanize people in that way. We also wanted to make sure that folks who were participating in our program understood exactly what they were signing up for, that they understood the consequences and the responses that would happen if there was a relapse, if they disengaged from treatment, if they sustained a rearrest. All of those things go to procedural justice. We also, again, this could be a lecture in and of itself, this risk needs responsivity model. But essentially what it means and what we adhere to is this theory that people who are at low risk of reoffense, the best thing you can actually do for those folks is exit them out of the criminal justice system. When I talk about robust felony programming, and I'm going to tell you kind of what that looks like in a moment, we want to be targeting the folks who are at highest risk for reoffense, the ones who are habitually cycling in and out of the criminal justice system. So a lot of what we do is actually tell ADAs, you know what, this person is unlikely to reoffend. You don't want to sign them up for a 24-month mandate in the court, because that could actually have a negative impact and lead to more criminality. Of course, we wanted to make sure Our North Star, so to speak, is reducing recidivism, and we wanted consistency. So let me tell you a little bit about drug court, which is one of our busiest felony court parts. It was actually when the legislature, the New York State legislature, reformed the Rockefeller drug laws in 2009. They, in addition to completely changing the sentencing structure, created drug courts around New York State. And what the drug court was designed to do after it was created, basically local stakeholders got together, including the DA's office, the Office of Court Administration, the defense attorney's bar. We got together and we decided, okay, we have this drug court, how will it run? And one of the things the statute delineated was the class of crimes that someone must be indicted for or charged with in order to avail themselves of drug court. And the lists are very long, but they're the crimes that we know are often committed by people who are struggling with substance use disorders. Drug sale is a big one. Burglary in the third degree, which is like commercial burglaries. Grand larcenies, stealing over $1,000 worth of store merchandise. We often see people who are struggling with substance use disorders stealing to resell that merchandise to maybe like bodegas, and then they take the cash and buy drugs. We see that a lot. And so those crimes were laid out in the statute. In addition to being charged with one of those crimes, a clinician has to find, one of the clinicians who works for the court part, that the defendant is a substance abuser or suffering from a substance use disorder under the DSM, which is the diagnostic manual used in this area. You know, one of the things we found in our drug court is that we're very busy. We have a lot of people who need substance use treatment, but a lot of them also have very serious co-occurring mental health issues. And what we heard from the clinicians in that part is that they felt while they were experts in substance use, they were not experts in serious mental health issues, and it was a challenge for them to deal with that population. And so over the last few years, with money that the DA's office gained from forfeiture funds, we were able to put that money towards creating a mental health track within drug court. Actually, tomorrow I have a meeting where that track will launch. And what they're going to do is they're going to hire a part-time psychiatrist and 2 mental health social workers, so that when we see applicants for judicial diversion who have these co-occurring mental health issues, they can, work with these experts, and they won't be rejected from the program simply because their mental health needs are too significant. This alternatives to incarceration part that I mentioned, it launched in 2019. It was another court part that was funded by asset forfeiture money. And it was really a labor of love from the DA's office, the defense bar, and the Office of Court Administration. And we came together and, working with the Center for Court Innovation, created this court part that, again, could service people who did not fit into one of our traditional court parts. If you're selling drugs to support a drug habit, you're likely eligible for judicial diversion. If you're a young person and you're selling drugs because you live in poverty and you didn't graduate high school and you don't have a lot of great prospects in terms of employment, judicial diversion is not going to work for you. Drug treatment is not going to fix that problem. And so, but workforce development might, and some good case management might. And so this court part was designed to service people like that. Also, judicial diversion, the felonies that are not delineated in that statute are violent felonies. And we know that often violent felonies, are also committed by people with significant needs. And so in the alternatives to incarceration part, we are not limited to a certain type or class of felony. We can consider everyone. So the needs addressed, you'll see them listed: substance use, mental health, workforce development, negative social peers, a young person who perhaps is gang involved, housing instability. All of these issues are addressed in this catch-all part, the alternatives to incarceration part. Just so that you can understand, generally speaking, how these programming dispositions work at the DA's office. Right now, I can look at a rap sheet and I can say, you know what, I think this person needs drug treatment. It's often that need is very clear. However, usually the request comes to us from the defense attorney. And that's because a big part of going down this road, the alternatives to incarceration road, is the defendant being interested in treatment and the incentives being there for the from a legal perspective for the defendant to apply for treatment and to participate in a treatment program. So usually that's a conversation that really, it starts with the defense attorney and the client. And then what usually happens is the attorney will call one of the assistant who's assigned to the case and say, hey, you know, my guy has an issue, my gal has an issue. Can you consider them for programming? Usually the next thing that happens is they call our unit and we try to get a better sense of what the individual's needs are. And also we look, of course, at the instant case facts. We look at their criminal history and all the closed case facts. And we see, is this someone who, from a public safety perspective, we believe can be managed safely in the community? The next step is a clinical assessment. You know, obviously I'm a lawyer, and while I've learned a lot about this area, I am not an expert in it and I'm not a clinician. And a big kind of tenet of the ATI part of the ATI unit is this belief that we need to trust the clinicians in terms of what their expertise is. So there'll be an assessment conducted and a treatment plan formulated. At the same time that's happening, the prosecutors in our unit are vetting the case to see whether or not we think A, the treatment plan hits all the needs, and B, from a public safety perspective, we think the person can be released. Some applicants in these court parts, including in judicial diversion, can participate with or without the people's consent. However, many of our defendants, I would say the vast majority of them, are predicate felons, meaning within the last 10 years, they have another felony conviction. I'll be honest with you, most of our participants are, you know, habitual recidivants. They are in and out and they have very long criminal histories. And depending on what the charge is, very often they need our consent to participate in programming. That's because they're facing mandatory state time if the people don't consent and agree that at the end of the case, at the end of successful treatment, we will dismiss the indictment or we will offer you a misdemeanor instead of the felony. So usually these are done on the people's consent. Once everyone agrees that, you know, this is the right treatment plan and this is what the defendant wants to do, there's a plea agreement that's of course reviewed at length between the defense attorney and the defendant. It's executed in open court. Our mandate lengths, and again, this is on felonies, usually between 9 and 24 months. If someone's going to be sent to residential treatment, you can be in residential treatment for anywhere from a year to, depending on how you do, much longer. And so as a result, the mandate lengths are often a little bit longer. We have frequent court updates where the clinician, the participant, the judge, the defense attorney, and the prosecutor and one of our social workers, we all meet and we hear how the person's doing. If they're struggling, we first are asking, well, clinically, what can be done to try to address this person's needs and this struggle that we're seeing? Then, you know, if the person's doing well, we cheer them on, and often we reward them by shortening their mandate length. There are all sorts of responses and rewards that the stakeholders came up with when the court part was originally created. And then, as I mentioned, the vast majority of these individuals are getting a favorable disposition, which usually means a misdemeanor or better, a violation or a dismissal at the end of successful completion. Just very briefly, you know, when I started in the DA's office in 2007, I remember recommending 20 days jail, 30 days jail, sometimes even more if someone had a crack pipe on them. That was at that time what I was taught and what we did. And I think, you know, in the last decade, our thinking has evolved so significantly. And we know that 20 days in jail is really only going to often make things worse because it's going to destabilize the individual further. And so the DA's office worked with the Center for Court Innovation and some other groups, and this Manhattan Justice Opportunity Center came about. it is basically on misdemeanors in lieu of like a 20-day jail sentence. Instead, you're referred for like 3 to 5 sessions with a social worker. And the hope is that you will be referred for treatment and you'll like it enough after a few sessions to continue engaging in treatment. The center is not only for criminal defendants, it's actually open to anyone in the community can go and avail themselves of their services. The center is located in 80 Center Street in downtown Manhattan. Okay, so special considerations, you know, things that maybe everyone who says they support ATIs, these are the things that make them complicated and that folks maybe don't always think about. The first is public safety. You know, we look at violent cases and we take violent cases into our programs, and there's never a guarantee that the participant is going to succeed. I always say we deal with a pretty unreliable population. However, again, after a lot of years of experience, I think that we've honed our skills to try to, you know, to have a good sense of whether someone is likely to reoffend and whether someone's likely to reoffend violently. A big part of ATI practice is leverage. You know, we have a misdemeanor treatment court, which is an 8-month mandate. When I started at the DA's office, that court part was quite busy. And one of the reasons was because at that time, there was a policy coming out of, I think, the mayor's office and the DA's offices around the city called Operation Spotlight. And essentially, a certain number of habitual misdemeanors, like their rap sheet was stamped with the words Operation Spotlight. And it meant that these were basically like kind of like the worst of the worst, and we needed to try to incapacitate them. So on those cases, the kind of party line was recommend a year in jail when they pick up their next misdemeanor. And because that sentence was often imposed by the judge, we had a lot of people who came to us and said, you know what, I'd like to do this. I'd rather do 8 months in treatment than a year in jail. And so there was leverage there. I told you that we've evolved in our thinking. I think society has. And so the truth is that on a lot of these misdemeanors, they're not facing any jail time. And as a result, we've lost some leverage. And so our felony programs, this is why we can recommend, you know, 9 to 24 months of treatment, because these folks are facing usually state prison time for sometimes longer sentences. And so ATI looks attractive. But we have you wouldn't believe how many people reject us. And by that, I mean, the incentive they decide with their attorney is not there. They'd rather, you know, take a year in jail than sign up for, you know, 24 months of treatment. Many of them, not anymore because of bail reform, but previously many of them were held in on bail. And so they were accruing time and credit towards their ultimate sentence. So a lot of them had the time largely in custody, and they decided they'd just serve a few more months and get out than participate in programming. So leverage is a big piece of it. Insight and motivation to change. I think we've all seen on the news some of what's happening on our streets, especially with folks who are struggling with serious mental health issues. And, you know, it is easy and it's understandable, like this, why can't you just help them? Like just put them in a program. Like it makes complete sense. But I think one thing that I see day in and day out is, you know, I don't even have to meet with folks, although I do meet with our participants regularly. But when someone's held in custody, corrections creates, they do an intake and an assessment, and we can ask the defense to get us those records. And so we can see things like, is the person participating in mental health and therapy while they're at Rikers? Are they compliant with their medication at Rikers? And when you see in those records that they're not compliant with their mental health medication, when you meet with them and when they say, I don't really think I have a problem, I don't want to take medication, and I just, you know, the person just doesn't have insight into what the problem is, and they're unlikely to engage in programming. All the programs we use, even the residential ones, these are not lockdown facilities. Our participants can leave at any time. They are not secure. And so if I think that someone who's applying for an ATI is not going to engage the day they walk out of jail and they're released, if they're not going to engage in those programs, if they're not going to take their medication, And if I feel that they present, a danger, it's very hard for me to consent to them participating in programming. So that's a challenge. God, he's so sick, he needs help. It's like, I know he does, but he's not going to do it. That's the problem. And then, of course, available resources. We've learned that there are some areas where there's lack of resources, and it's not just in treatment. I don't need to tell any of you that New York City has a housing problem. And many of our folks are cycling in and out because they don't have secure housing. And so that's a struggle that we face all the time, in addition to others. But I want to talk. So let me stop sharing my screen. I hope that all made sense. It was a very brief overview, but I'd love to have a conversation if there's time.
Okay, well, thank you very much. And yes, we do want to have a conversation. So that was a lot of information, although it was short, but it was very packed, So I would like to take questions and answers so we can continue for a while. What I will do is take questions from committee members first, and then the others. Okay, so the way you do this is you raise your hand. I don't see any.
Yeah, we have Ricky.
Okay.
Yeah, Ricky, David, then Thomas, and then Susan.
Okay. Ricky?
Yep. Hi, Tony. Thanks for the presentation. I actually have a two-part question, and they're kind of more generic. I guess the first one is that obviously with the upcoming elections and the change of administration, will that end up impacting your program, or is there your program sort of kind of in a way that's protected, and a change of administration wouldn't change what you guys are doing right now?
Okay, that's a great question. And, I think the answer is yes and no. For something like judicial diversion, which is largely created by statute, the new DA can't erase that from the, however, a new DA could say, we're not going to, indict these people for these types of crimes, right? Well, then they wouldn't be eligible. Or certainly, I told you about leverage. Leverage has a lot to do with it. And for better or worse, I'm not making a comment about what the folks running for election might do. But if you decided not to proceed on certain felonies, you're not going to have the leverage for the ATI part or judicial diversion. I guess conversely, if you, and I don't think this is anyone who's running, but if you had a DA who said, I'm going to bring back, Operation Spotlight, that's not going to happen. But, if it did, it would have consequences, certainly. There could be, I think, with the new administration, a movement towards, look, we're considering programming on all kind of a certain class of felonies, regardless of someone's criminal history. So I guess that could open up things more. So I think there will be consequences, but I think I would hope that anyone who comes in would see the value in what we've built, and if anything, only expand it.
Okay, and then the other part of my question was, and you had mentioned the change in the Rockefeller laws. Has bail reform impacted your program, either positively, negatively, or it's not a factor whatsoever? That's a more general question.
It definitely has, in so many different ways. So let's see. One thing, people who are struggling with substance use disorders, for example, or mental health issues, they tend to be not the type of people who can stay super organized and even have telephones to stay in touch with their attorneys, right? And so, the reality is, if someone's in Rikers, we can get in touch with them, right? Through their attorney, but sometimes we have to set up meetings with applicants. We want to try to have them sign HIPAA waivers so that we can, see their prior treatment records. That's sometimes harder, obviously, when someone can't be located. So that's something I think that, folks who are in custody obviously are eager to get out of custody. That's common sense. And so I think that in that way, programming looked really attractive to people when they were held in. Now, if you are out and the recommendation is to go to a residential treatment facility, that might not seem as attractive as it used to when you were maybe in Rikers. So there's those things. look, Rikers, I was just met with a gentleman this afternoon who said, look, Rikers is not, I'm not saying this is a good place overall, but they do sometimes stabilize people, right? Like this gentleman was saying, I needed this time out because my head needed to get clear because he has just a very serious heroin addiction. And so, you know, it sometimes would stabilize people so that they maybe could have different conversations or more meaningful conversations about treatment. I think that, you know, in some ways it makes ATI more appealing that folks are out now, because remember I told you a lot of times when people were held in on bail, they'd be earning credit. And so if on like a commercial burglary, maybe the judge would say, I'm going to give you 2 years. Well, if you already have a lot of time in, you're more likely to just say, give me the 2 years versus the 24-month treatment program, right? So it's interesting. It's had an impact in a lot of different ways.
Thank you so much, Tony.
Thomas.
Wow. Thank you. You really presented some innovative stuff. Amazing. I want to ask Tony, is there a mechanism to assess if any of your clients participated in special education services?
Okay, yes. You know, often that's a question that the clinicians ask. And it's also a question that during so we call them proffers when we get together with the applicant. And we don't do that on like all cases, but certainly on like serious violent felonies, we do. To assess the things I talked about, insight, you know, willingness to engage and motivation to engage in treatment. And I can tell you just on my kind of anecdotal experience of that, overwhelmingly, you know, there are trends. It's not like rocket science, you know, what kind of leads people to this place. There's so many trends that we see. Often they did have IEPs when they were in school. Many of them endured abandonment issues, you know, from one or both of their parents. Often, and this is not, certainly we see other people who come into the criminal justice system with these needs that don't fit this profile, but overwhelmingly we see trauma, sexual trauma often. We see poverty, you know, folks who grew up in really challenging economic situations, very often witness domestic violence in the home, had a parent who was struggling with an untreated substance use disorder or mental health issue. These are the things, but yes, IEPs, we see it often. And I have to tell you, I was a public school teacher before I went to law school. Wow. And I can only speak to my experience in my school, but there were many children who I think probably in a different school system would have been designated as special ed, but weren't. They were mainstreamed in my classroom. Not getting the services that they needed. So anyway, all of that culminates to them ending in the criminal justice system.
Yeah, I asked about it because it's like, I know disproportionate amounts of kids who are in and out the system and who have suffered extraordinary violence. Is there any mechanism that you have or a person assigned that deals with youth in a preventative manner?
Well, so, you know, the legislature also changed, they did this raise the age where they changed, you know, the age of criminal responsibility. And so that's actually handled in a specialized court part. And the judge, the DA's office, to be honest with you, has a little less influence there. And I say that only because under the law, the judge can give whatever programming he or she wants, kind of without our consent. The law allows that. And so of course we try to advocate for certain services, but it's really once they hit 18, which that's still a young person. I mean, I think that brain science says your brain is still developing until you're like 25. So, you know, we actually in the ATI part, we just launched an emerging adult track for the 18 to 24, 25 age range. We worked with Columbia Justice Lab. They advised us on kind of best practices, and we're working with 2 programs, The Door. I don't know if you guys are familiar with The Door and GOSO, Get Out, Stay Out. So for certain young people who are assessed and who have kind of the appropriate level of needs, they'll go through this track. I'll tell you, the young people are a challenge, and they're a challenge because, you know, often they're not yet, although I hate to say they will likely become if we can't kind of right the ship, they're not like heavy substance users. Their biggest issue tends to be negative social peers, right? And that is a very hard thing and trauma, underlying trauma. That is a very hard thing for the criminal justice system to break, right? Like often their families have tried to address it. It hasn't worked. And ultimately, because I have housing issues, I can't take you out of your apartment. Like I can try to infuse programming, but you're going to go right back to that apartment, that neighborhood, your friends. And it's very hard for a bunch of adults, especially lawyers, to try to break that cycle. So it's hard. It's an unpredictable population. And it can, as you know, sometimes drives violence. You know, we have taken gun cases into the ATI part. And when we do, we look at them very, closely. And I'll tell you, I am scared, like, I mean, I think we're making the right decision. I'm thinking of a young man who did fabulously, but it is an unpredictable population. And so you do the best you can to make the right decision. But it's a challenging population. There's no doubt about it.
Thank you.
Okay, Susan Stetzer.
Susan, you're on mute.
Sorry, thank you. I'd like to ask about localizing this more. I have to admit I missed most of the presentation because I was at a precinct meeting, one of those new reform council meetings. And at the meeting, I asked about whether there's any diversion programs. And what they said is that there are programs, but they seem to have nothing to do with the precinct. When the person is in court, that is decided at that time. And from what they said, there doesn't seem to be much emphasis. For instance, if someone, a charge might be downgraded so they wouldn't be eligible, they might have time served so that they wouldn't go in. There doesn't seem to be an effort to try and make these options possible. And there's no connection. So we have these officers who are arresting the same people over and over again, but they don't know what's happening down at the court level. The DA used to work with us more locally. And I'm gonna talk about Superwoman Linda Genet. And we would have like a person that was causing a problem. And, we'd be working with the precinct, we'd be working with the DA's office, and she'd say, we're gonna take this path, or we're gonna get, arrest her and give her this option of this diversion program. And it was very intentional on who they thought could help. And, so the people that were dealing with her all the time kind of knew what was going on too. And I'm wondering if it was more effective when that happened. I'm wondering, it just seems like right now, I don't feel like the city can be doing as much as it can. Putting someone in jail for a few hours and having them back on the street doesn't help them. It doesn't help anyone. And, and it seems like there's less intention and local follow through. Could you address that at all?
Yeah, so, and I mean, you guys know Kevin, and Kevin's unit obviously, is kind of the arm to the community, so to speak. I would just say this, Susan, and you may have missed this kind of point in the presentation, but I talked a little bit about leverage, and one of the reasons this Manhattan Justice Opportunities Center launched is because a lot of people don't go to jail anymore on misdemeanors, which is, generally a very good thing. However, we can't get people to sign up for really robust treatment programs when they're facing very light sentences. I mean, that's kind of the reality. And so the answer is to refer them to kind of what I call light touch providers, in the hope that they will make a connection and they'll stick with it. I think one thing that maybe not everyone understands, although I suspect this group does, is, anyone who we see who comes through my desk, they could have engaged in the treatment and services they needed the day before they were arrested. And by that, I mean, overwhelmingly, the population that we work with is on Medicaid. Medicaid pays for the drug treatment program, the mental health services. Often these folks have been referred before by parole or, other providers, and they didn't engage. And the truth is, the only reason they're really willing to engage with me is because they're facing a hammer, and so I think like a lot of what we see on the streets, and it's upsetting to see, like these are largely misdemeanor crimes, someone shooting up, right? I mean, it's very disturbing to see that, and it's sad. But it's a misdemeanor, and like we can't make it a felony just to try to force them into programming, right? But we also don't have the leverage that we might have had years ago when people were facing more jail time on those cases. And so we're always reevaluating what we can do. But what we're doing right now on those cases is trying to refer them to social workers and requiring them to go to a few sessions with the hope that the social worker will be fabulous, do their job, and get them to continue voluntarily once the mandate is lifted. I don't know, Susan, if that answers your question.
Well, I'd like to ask Kevin, do the precincts work with you at all? Because
Yeah,
I don't see, go ahead.
Yeah, Susan, I actually, as you mentioned, that I wanted to just kind of point to something that we're doing in East Harlem. We actually just started doing it in West Harlem, where commanding officers of the precincts, they would engage with young people and they try their ways and methods of trying to intervene and provide different programs for young folks. But there's always that barrier. Talking to a law enforcement officer, there's a level of distrust that may exist there as well. And so what we started doing is our unit, the community partnerships unit, we work very closely with community-based organizations that have violence interrupters, that have credible messengers, and several service providers. And we realized that they're not always in communication. The commanding officers, the folks that are on the ground, are not in communication with the folks that are actually providing the services. They're serving the same people, but they're not communicating and knowing sort of the tracking the progress of where they're at with that young person. So it's something that we kind of just implemented in East Harlem, and it's been very successful, where in the 25th precinct and the 23rd precinct, we have an ongoing meeting with the commanding officers there. They mention whether there's a particular individual that they're trying to get to, and they're having some difficulty getting to. Obviously, we have certain programs, Saturday Night Lights, youth programming, etc. But that's not generally for the hard to reach, the folks that are involved in the violent crime. The people that do the violence interruption work, they're there for the hard to reach population. So if a commanding officer or an officer on the ground says that I'm having an issue with a young person, they can then connect with that person, put them directly in touch with the credible messenger, and they'll go in and start introducing themselves, doing a little bit of intervention there. And another thing I want to highlight is that throughout someone's sort of life and their careers, depending on where they're at, they may have gone through several agencies. Several folks have tried contacting them, and it hasn't worked, either through distrust or other factors. And then when they get to our office, we're kind of the last resort. And that's usually, as Tony mentioned, that's usually when they may, if they have the option, to take the programming. But we don't want to be, what we try to focus on is stopping the person before they get to our office. And that's where our work with the community-based organizations and other service providers really comes in handy, because we don't want to wait till the person has committed a crime, because then by then you have someone that's a victim of a crime as well. And so, Susan, I think this is an excellent opportunity for us to start really organizing and seeing if we work very closely with Henry Street Settlement, which focuses on the Lower East Side. We fund their youth hub over there and the Saturday Night Lights program over there. And they even just actually started a sort of credible messenger group as well. They're working with another organization called Prison on the Streets that's been doing a lot of work on the ground. And so I think it's a great opportunity for us to really start increasing our communication with everyone that's kind of doing the same work down in the Lower East.
Yeah, I would like to see more of it down here. I think we need it. And more communication with the precincts. the meeting, so Kevin recently organized a meeting with some residents who had some concerns about drug issues, and we had PSA 4 there, and I was there, and I thought it was very helpful. And then when I told the precinct about it, they thanked me for reaching out to you and said that was a great thing. But that's not supposed to be my job. I mean, I'm glad I did it, but that needs to be ongoing without me. And, you know, we should all be in the same room.
Absolutely, and I agree. Although we speak to precincts on different levels. So we may have someone speaking to the commanding officer, a different unit speaking to the community affairs officer. So we speak on various different levels. And I think particularly to what you're speaking about, Susan, like the issue that we had over at, I think it was Bracetti houses, like speaking directly on those particular issues. That's where my unit comes in. Ling Jin is on the meeting, who's the new community coordinator for that area as well. And, you know, as she starts to get her feet wet and get more familiar with the different providers there, I'm always available to make sure that we facilitate those conversations. But based off of that conversation, we have a great event happening this Saturday. We're going to be there to provide services and resources. So I think it's definitely something that we're starting, and we hope to continue and have more of those conversations.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, great. Thanks. So I'm going to take one last question, and it will be from Paul Rangel.
Thank you, May. First of all, if you saw the Kool-Aid smile on my face before, it's because I work for the door. So I'm well aware of our Youth Opportunity Hub and what we do with the DA's office. And we're so appreciative of that opportunity. And thank you for referencing the youth part, because in my previous life, I also worked for an alternative to incarceration program, now known as Avenues for Justice. They were formerly known as the Educ Lover Youth Program. But they focus primarily on young people, right? And this is more focused towards the older population. My question is, you've said you have a hammer, and I know exactly what that means. What is the follow-up? What's the follow-through at the end for somebody who's taken an opportunity to do treatment, but now their treatment is over? And now what happens after that? What's the next step? What's the follow-through? Where do we go from here? This person's done it. They've maybe had their charge dismissed. I don't know if that's something that is done, or your sentence is reduced, or whatever to time served. However it's played out by the DA's office and the plea agreement, what's the follow through after the end? Like, how do we make sure that the recidivism rate stays down? You know, we've given an opportunity to you to try to get things done again and be back on the streets again and being helpful to the community. But now what happens next?
So great question, Paul. So I'm so happy to hear that you're at the door. That's wonderful. So, okay. You know, one of the things, in addition to like completing the treatment program, you know, for years, like we used to say, okay, you need to go to residential treatment, but we never required outpatient treatment on the back end. And we realized that was not doing anyone a service, because it's really once someone exits the residential setting and kind of goes back into the real world, so to speak, with all those triggers, that's where the rubber hits the road. And so, you know, we make sure that if you are sent to residential treatment, that there's an outpatient treatment, outpatient component on the back end. We also require everyone who graduates from drug court or programming in the ATI part, they need to have a lawful means of support. And that means a job or benefits. And that's not just about having money in your pocket. That is about having a pro-social activity, right? To occupy your time, you know, exposing you to other people who are also engaged in working, and which is a pro-social activity, helping you develop the self-confidence and the schedule, all of those things that we know help avoid recidivism. We really work with all of our participants to achieve stable housing before they graduate. It is a very rare case where someone in our program graduates who's still in the homeless shelter. And that's because we are pushing from, like, for example, if you're mentally ill, you almost certainly can get supportive housing through a 2010E application. Paul, I'm sure you're familiar with those. So like, we are trying to get the social workers to fill those applications out once they start the program. So at the end, you know, that's they have that option, because we know housing is so important to reducing recidivism. So we basically, you know, line these things up. I'll tell you, there's some societal things that I see impacting the success of our graduates. And I'll give you an example. I have heard from more than one graduate who had a job upon graduation, that they started earning too much to still qualify for Medicaid. So they, I guess, got on private insurance. Well, the insurance they had, they couldn't afford the I guess, premiums or whatever, was too high to afford their mental health medication. And so then they had to make the hard decision to stop taking the mental health medication. So we see those things. They're a little outside of our control, although whenever we become aware of them, we try to discuss as part of the exit plan, like, how are you going to deal with this if it is to happen? And then we track recidivism rates, 1 and 2 year recidivism rates, so that we can, you know, see what's working, what's not working. Is there a certain program that's doing better or not doing better? You know, we are very stats driven. So we look at all of those things. But to answer your question, we try to set people up as best as we can so that they can fly on their own. And we try to, as they exit, make them understand that even if they decide to stop going to formal treatment, to still engage in like NA, AA, and to remember that if they start to struggle, they can return to their programs. You know, they're still eligible to receive those services, even if they're not court mandated. So those are just some of the things we try to do.
Awesome, thank you. May, this question is for you. Is there any way down the line we can potentially, on another agenda item, bring the DA's office back, maybe with Kevin as well, to start thinking about what kind of levels of support CB3 can give the DA's office in putting programs together to help with all these people who are at the back end of these treatment programs, and how we can continue to support them? Is that something we can think about as the best way to, for us to support?
Yeah, I think so. And then we also talking about the preventive programs they were talking about before they get to the DA's office.
Both, yes.
Both. Oh, okay. I think that we can.
Let's check every box.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, I think we could. We need to just. We'll talk about it more offline and see how we can bring them back.
I was going to say, would it be useful to have Henry Street with them?
I think so. Henry Street does so much, so I think they'd be a great partner to have.
They're your main partner here, right? Is that correct?
For the, yeah.
Okay.
Because the door is CB2.
And the door. We'll invite the door. We'll invite the door.
But they serve a lot of people who actually live in our district, although they're in the other one. Okay. Okay, that's great. Okay. Well, thank you.
Thank you. And you, I think you have my contact information. I would, if anyone has any follow-up, please feel free to call me or email me, and I would love to have a kind of a further conversation.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
All right. Nice meeting you all.
All right. Okay.
Bye. Bye, Kevin.
Okay. Bye-bye. Okay, great. So we are on to our next agenda item, which is for a presentation from the Institute for Collaborative Education. And we have Peter Karp with us, who is the principal of the school. Hi, Peter. And you're going to present. Hi. And so you see the agenda item. He's going to present about the school's proposal to move to our area.
That's right.
Yeah, so you can start.
Okay, great. I just want to say hi to Joe.
Are you the only presenter, or is it, or you're the only presenter today, right?
Yes, that's right. It's just me. And just saying hi to Joe from Eastside, who I see on here, my friend and colleague. So yeah, I will share my screen. Bear with me. And okay, so we just as a note, our school for many years, since its inception, has been known as ICE, and over the last several years, we've made a decision to change our name. So we haven't done it officially, but we are referring to ourselves as the New York Institute for Collaborative Education, which goes well as NICE. So I want to, I'm going to tell you a little bit about our history as an institution, what we're doing that we think could bring benefit to the residents of District 1 and a little bit about our current situation in our building. So the Institute for Collaborative Education was founded in 1993. John Pettinato, who was a social worker, founded the school after working for 20 years as the director of the Greenwich Village Youth Council. And GVYC was our partner CBO for 20 years. Its headquarters since 1989 are at the Joy Center, which is over on Eldridge Street, just south of Stanton. So we've had historical ties to the area for a very long time. When I started working at the school 20 years ago, approximately 50% of our students lived in the East Village, Lower East Side, Soho, and West Village. We are a founding member of the New York Performance Standards Consortium. And we were, alongside our colleagues from the consortium, participated in the protests, the rallies in Albany that earned our original waiver from the Regents exams. And we continue to support an explicitly anti-high stakes testing position. And many of our community members continue to opt out from middle school state exams in addition to our waiver from Regents. So we still draw quite heavily from District 1. Approximately 17 of our current 6th graders are District 1 residents, and in our middle school, approximately 45 students, which is about 25% of our current middle school. We founded the school to intentionally be a racially and socioeconomically diverse community. In recent years, we have found that we need to participate in the diversity in admissions pilots in order to increase diversity after several years of losing some of that. So we're in year 1, which means that the cohort entering in the fall of 2021, the 50% of those students are eligible for free and reduced price lunch, which is what middle school admissions granted us. And next year they've granted us 65%. So that's what will be for 2022. And we've maintained a very strong alumni community. Our teaching staff, we cultivate community in part by hiring alumni as teachers, tutors, and other staff members. So there are 6 current staff members, 4 teachers that are ICE alumni. In addition, many of the children of our alumni are our current students. So starting in the fall, we will have 20 students whose parents graduated from our school. And in addition, we utilize a network of families to work with our students around employment and internship opportunities. And lastly, in terms of like cultivation, we cultivate school leadership quite regularly. It is a trait of many consortium schools, but in addition to myself, we've cultivated school leaders who founded Essex Street Academy, a neighbor in the Lower East Side, Bronx Collaborative High School, as well as the leadership, the school principal at Gotham Arts Academy, the Bronx Lab School, as well as the assistant principal at the Brooklyn School for Collaborative Studies, which are all consortium schools. Beyond that, we have school administrators in Connecticut and in Portland, Oregon, in Baltimore. So our teaching staff and our approach to leadership is strong. And so let me move on. Okay, so just to tell you a little bit about the community at our school at NICE, we currently serve 483 students in grades 6 through 12. They're from all 5 boroughs of New York City, but the vast majority of our students live in either Manhattan or Brooklyn, and that's roughly an even split between Manhattan and Brooklyn. And about 15% of our students are from the Bronx. We've always taken a very student-centered approach. I think being founded by a social worker is a big part of that. And Greenwich Village Youth Council really worked and continues to work with marginalized youth and provided safe havens for youth. And so our founder wanted our school community to be a safe haven for young people. So we've upheld that part of John's vision, and I've sustained that by building and sustaining structures that make sure that students are known well by a group of adults. And we require our teachers to design learning experiences that are shared by all, but that are also, that also can be highly individualized. So that in the classroom, students are nurtured, and in every other way, students are nurtured. And we really believe that our kids should be able to be themselves and be supported by all. We also believe that it is very important for young people to attend schools with diverse student bodies. We believe in a racially and socioeconomically diverse school community. We know that research shows that increases academic, cognitive, social, and civic benefits. There's a paper released by the Century Foundation, which is essentially a meta study of a lot of work around racial and socioeconomic diversity in schooling. And so for our school, that's I think relevant because we emphasize collaboration in the classroom. So we have our students are connecting with one another very regularly across lines of difference. We are currently working on, as I said, increasing socioeconomic and racial diversity through a DIA pilot. And as I said, next year, the applicants, 65% of seats are set aside for students eligible for free and reduced price lunch. That's part of our effort and an increased effort, an increased emphasis, I should say, on serving the historically underserved. We're interested, so I'm here speaking with you today because we're interested in a relocation. Specifically, we are aware that there is currently space, unutilized space in the Marta Valle High School campus that was formerly did house the Marta Valle High School. And we're interested in moving to District 1 in particular so that we can continue to serve a historically underserved low-income students of color and increase the degree to which we're doing that. And we would look to offer 60% of our seats or give priority access and admissions of at least 60% of our seats to the students of District 1. Which I think would address a need for more, quality middle school options for the district. We understand that, or I understand that many students need to leave the district for middle school. It's in the hundreds, and while we wouldn't be able to offer that many seats because we are still quite small, it would mitigate the need. And there are many highlights that I would like to boast about, but we cultivate top tier academic, arts, and athletic programs. We want our students to have opportunities for a really quality experience across those three. A lot of our kids find and develop passion while they're at NICE. So we have students that continue on to become college athletes. We have students who learn how to play a musical instrument that then go on to conservatory, or at least use their musical experience as the pathway or ticket to college. There's one young man in particular who entered our school in the 9th grade who had not played music, found a passion for jazz and playing the drums, and he's got a full scholarship to City College's Conservatory of Music. And that's one of many similar experiences. And then another tie to the area, we have a partnership with University Settlement through a Sonic program that provides half of our middle school students after school programming from 3 to 6 p.m. And our faculty provide a wide range of after school activities. There are academic and sports and arts activities, but some examples would be our participation in the Billion Oyster Project, our GSA project Skittles, our BSU, very active community service club, our drama club. We work with Arts for Art, which is another Lower East Side organization founded by William Parker, the great free jazz bassist. And that organization runs an after-school program for community members and students as well in our space. Okay. Whoops. All right. So I want to highlight that we really try to individualize the service and that we provide to our students. We do that in a number of ways. I think the most prominent and most relevant way is through academics. But there are a lot of structures within the school. So we maintain the smallest class sizes that we're able to. So our average is 22.3 students in a class currently. We would like that to be smaller, but the constraints of New York City Department of Education keep us at that size. We utilize a project-based learning and project-based assessment in all of our grades. Unlike some of our colleagues in the consortium use the PBAT, the performance-based assessment task, as a graduation requirement, we've adapted that model in all subject areas. And then we have an advisory system. We also use a cohort model, meaning that students travel together from class to class. And what it means is that our teachers really get to know and advocate and support our students. Advocate for, I should say. So we have, in addition to that, there are other forms of student support. Myself and our assistant principal both teach classes to incoming 6th graders so that we know all of our students, we know how they operate as learners, and they know us. So we've used that to build trust, but also as a way to understand the people that we're working with. In addition, we have a high capacity counseling program. 23% of our students participate in our counseling program. We have 3 full-time social workers and 2 social work interns that work with our children. And we emphasize talk therapy. This is not necessarily school-based counseling. And of course, we target that service to the needs of the child, but our social workers are there to provide counseling, to provide therapy, not just to help our students navigate school. In addition, another important thing, speaking to what the person before me was speaking about, we do a lot of work along with many consortium colleagues to really weaken the school to prison pipeline or to stay away from it. We avoid punishing students for any kinds of infraction. We had an average of 2 principal suspensions a year for the last 5 years and 0 superintendent suspensions. We don't believe in participating in that model unless it's absolutely necessary, i.e. An extreme safety risk. But we work with our students and we try to make sure that they are supported first. We try to make sure that we're engaging each individual with compassion, and that pays off. It pays off because students change slowly over time. Some of the students that have spent the most time in my office have gone on to do amazing things. A recent last year, one of my kids graduated from a Division I basketball program. He will be going to Europe to play ball next year. We kept him out of the criminal justice system, or whatever you would call it, through advocacy by our school and Greenwich Village Youth Council. And additionally, another another particularly challenging child, went to fund an arts collective, which is now being nominated for Grammy Awards, the Onyx Collective, which actually runs a studio currently in the Lower East Side. Another thing that we can do for District 1 students, we have an outstanding track record with individualized college advisement. So we have, either full or partial scholarships for almost every one of our graduates. I think this year, despite the pandemic, we actually have scholarships for every individual student, some kind of financial aid or scholarship. So we advocate regularly for individual students. Just this week, we were able to advocate for a first-generation college student that was accepted to Syracuse University to help them go from partial to full scholarship. That's a great way that we're able to help. We get to know our students, we cultivate relationships with our colleges, etc. Another boast, we had 5 finalists for the Posse Foundation Scholarship this year. 2 of our kids won. And then we also have, this year, we have 3 first-generation college students attending schools on full rides. There are many other first-gen kids, but we're very proud when our kids can go for free. I also want to mention that this wasn't in our facts, but 23% of our children have IEPs. Our students with IEPs graduate and enroll in 4-year schools at the same rates as students without diagnosed disabilities. Okay. The last bullet here is really about the PBAT system. I can speak to you guys more about that if you like, but the idea of PBATs is that in every subject area, students complete a very long-term rigorous project in which they're guided by a faculty advisor. These tasks really deepen students' development of critical thinking skills, oral presentation skills, and in particular, the creation of completely unique work in each subject. Okay. So here's some of the ways that kids can engage when they're at NICE. And this is another thing that we want to be able to bring to students in District 1. We have a lot of different ways that students can engage. So one that I'll highlight is music performance. So our music program, and which also includes audio engineering and composition. There are many ways our kids engage within and outside the walls. So the NICE music program offers a jazz big band, offers songwriting, etc. Arts for Art, and like I said, that's William Parker's free jazz organization. Subway Moon was founded by our former music teacher, and it is now a not-for-profit that most recently worked with 2 schools in the Bronx where kids do a full hour-long composition and performance.
So I'm sorry, Peter. Peter, could I interrupt for a minute?
Sure thing.
So I also it's 7:54, and I was wondering. I did want people here, give them an opportunity to ask questions, and
Sure.
You sent me those bullet points, so I did. I composed a draft resolution that includes many of the bullet points, which are going over here. So if you could summarize this a little bit more, and then we can also then ask questions and also get to the particular thing that you are asking us for support, which is moving into a school building in our area.
Absolutely. I feel like I might end up repeating myself if I continue. What I would highlight, I'm just highlighting science, literature, theater, community activism, sports, all things that are very strong in our school. This is the last thing that I was going to talk about, which are particulars, but why don't I unshare and I can refer to the particulars should the need arise. And I'm going to just stop all right, I can just field questions and talk about, anything, the particular ask.
Right, okay. Do people have questions? I see Paul's hand raised.
Yeah, I just have a few questions if you indulge me really quick, Peter. Thank you for coming on and asking us for support for this potential move. It's a middle school to a high school, correct?
Yes.
How many eighth graders actually stay in? Excuse me, nice. How many stay? How many do you keep? And how many new ninth graders come in?
So we retain between 85 and 90% of our eighth graders,
Okay.
or I should say between 80 and 90%.
Okay.
So the smallest number over the last 5 years that departed was 5 students. The highest number that departed, I think, was 14.
Okay.
So in general, we will we should essentially only replace those that leave. Things don't work that easily within the Department of Education.
Right.
This year, 18 new students are joining us.
Okay, so my just 2 more questions. I apologize. Your current enrollment number is what again?
It's 483, 489 with LTAs.
Okay, and then if a potential move would increase the enrollment up to what number?
So if we're talking about the Marta Valle campus,
Right.
The space that it inhabited is for 500 students. So the enrollment wouldn't change all that much.
Okay.
The makeup of the enrollment would change in
The
that.
makeup.
Yeah, large percent from D1, larger percent eligible for free and reduced price lunch.
Fair enough. And what's the current graduation rate? I didn't see that number in the slides. What's the current graduation rate for seniors? I know you're getting scholarships and whatnot, but what's the current graduation rate?
So last year we were at 100% last year, and looks like 98% this year.
Awesome. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay, Shirley? Oh. Shirley Fennessy?
Yeah, so I love the idea of a consortium school because it avoids the regions, and it's a really great solution for an IEP student, and it helps them to avoid going to a regular high school and then needing to go to a transfer high school. My question really is around, ICE has traditionally been an application school where you have to have certain test scores, certain interviews. You have to qualify based on a lot of different criteria. My concern, I think it's great if you're going to make a larger percentage of your constituents in the school from District 1, because there aren't a lot of great middle school options. It's pretty segregated based on people who own co-ops or condominiums or whatever. Like it's basically like the whole situation in District 1 is you are assigned to certain middle schools based on, this isn't founded, but I've seen it as the result, based on how you pay property taxes. So I guess I would like to see, if ICE moves to the Marta Valle campus, I would really like to see it be a more open opportunity for students in elementary schools all over the District 1 especially, to be able to have an opportunity to get into ICE, because I know it's a citywide school, and a consortium school is an amazing opportunity for a kid with an IEP. So I just kind of want to understand how you're thinking about facing that issue, and if you're just kind of how thoughtful you are about that. Because right now there's sort of like, the middle school choices are limited and they don't offer enough choices for all of the students in our district.
Yes, I understood. I mean, a short answer is that we've lifted, during the pandemic, we lifted all of our academic screens, and we're committed to maintaining that. So we will, the only, we may ask for something like what is called an internal assessment, meaning someone could write us a letter and say they would like to come to our school.
Yeah.
That is, so we currently don't have screens for our high school or our middle school. We haven't used test scores as a determinant for quite some time. I think it was actually Mark that wrote the original letter, Fetterman at Eastside that
Right.
we signed on to.
Yeah.
And so we've actually faced a lot of the forces that I think you're referring to, and that's why we're now participating in a diversity in admissions pilot, because we started about 5 years ago doing deliberate outreach to schools that served majority Black and brown children, that served generally a lower income population. And that did help quite a bit in terms of increasing the number of applicants from outer boroughs, from students eligible for free and reduced price lunch, et cetera. But still, the overwhelming, the applications that we were receiving starting about 15 years ago started to be overwhelmingly from what we would describe as middle class areas, middle class neighborhoods. I couldn't tell you exactly if the people were middle class or not, but I would say yes, they were, and yes, they are. So the DIA program basically locks in that the student body and the access to the school will be prioritized to at least 2 groups of people.
So I guess one of my other questions would be around, okay, so we're thinking we have a DEI initiative, right? So how do we coach children who are in Black and brown communities or in, you know, PS15 or PS188 and who are in temporary housing? How do we coach those children to be able to get into ICE? Because they don't have the ability to know how to interview. They may not have that support. So how do we so if we're going to put ICE into District 1 and we're saying this is an option for District 1, like a majority option, like it's a priority, how do we get those kids to be able to get into the school? Because they have to, you know, they have to meet criteria that they may not have the ability to meet. So what is your thought about how is that going to happen? Sorry, I have to ask that.
No, it's a great question. We're not conducting interviews any longer. So we've ended that part of the admissions process. In terms of coaching, let's say this was 3 years ago, that would pose a problem. But if we're talking about applications, we're going to be using a lottery, and the students that get in through the lottery are the students that we work with.
But then if it's random, then how are we really looking at a DEI initiative? Like, how are we really making sure that we have, so is the lottery percentage of free and reduced lunch? Because now that's like not even transparent anymore. Or is it like the lottery is children who are in temporary housing? Like, how is your lottery structured so that it actually is equitable and not just random? Because random can be, you know, who knows what's going to be, who knows who's going to get assigned? I guess that's my question. Because we really want our kids in District 1 to have this opportunity. And if it's a local school where they could walk to school and it's a middle school that is amazing for them and a really good fit, then how do we make sure that there is a percentage of either District 1 kids or kids with IEPs or kids with free and reduced lunch? So how is the lottery at all weighted in any way, or is it just random like everybody in the city and whoever gets in gets in?
No, when you do the so a diversity in admissions pilot basically means that it is, unfortunately, this whole thing is run by computers. I'm not going to tell you that the computers are always right or always do their job right. They do a good job of getting X number of students that fit a certain criteria to the place that they're supposed to go, or that they're met, you know, whatever. So one criterion we would enter is that 65% of the students that come in would be students that count as eligible for free or reduced price lunch. That, from my understanding, does work. The other criterion would be that 60% of these people, the students, would be residents of District 1. From what I understand, that criterion also does work. But it is complete. I will be honest, it's out of my hands. I don't have anything to do with it. When you do a DIA, Diversity in Admissions Initiative, DOE Central runs it. Their admissions folks run it.
And then there's an E&L portion also, and English as new language, or English as whatever we're calling it now. There's that portion too. I guess I should look into the DOE
Yeah.
policy.
There's multilingual learners, that's what
Okay.
they're called.
Should I call on a person? If I
Oh,
see a
no,
hand?
no, okay, oh, you're done, okay, you're done. Okay, so the next person is Paul, and after Paul, I have a question.
Sure thing.
Madam Chair, I was going to say, in the interest of time, I will make motion to put this draft resolution on the floor.
Oh, okay. I just had a question though about the building itself. You know, there are, you know, you said the space that's been vacated holds 500, according to, or the previous school had 500, but there are 2 other schools in the building. So I want to know what you have done so far. I remembered we talked to you a couple of years ago, and you said you had put in a request with DOE just for space in general because you were running out of space in your current building. And I guess you're still there now, right?
Yeah.
So I guess not much has changed there. And so in terms of this building, you know, what have you done in terms of, you know, communicating with DOE and also with those 2 schools who are currently in the building?
So I haven't spoken with either of the current principals, but DOE, I've been speaking with my superintendent, Alan Chang, for the past 1.5 years. He is the person that made me aware that there was a space in that Marta Valle had you know, been combined with UNHS. You know, Superintendent Chang supports this move. And I've also spoken with a representative from the space planning office, and they're the people that essentially make the final decision. It used to be called portfolio planning, but they also support that we move. They don't necessarily support any one movement in particular, which is why I'm here. I also spoke with Naomi Pena, and I'm scheduled to speak with her again in about a week to get support from the CEC. I can't speak for Ms. Pena, but it did seem like you know, she reached out again and is expressing interest in exploring ways to make this happen. And I've reached out to the principal of the Global Leaders School, and we'll hope to make contact. I don't think that's going to happen until summer, just knowing the year that all of us are having. School administrators right now don't have much time to do much of anything. But I do plan to speak with them, and I've as well as the superintendent who founded Global Leaders as well.
Right,
So on the DOE side, I do have support from DOE, most significantly my superintendent.
Okay, and then have you spoken to the other school, Lower East, the principal of Lower East Side Prep? It's
I
a
haven't,
transfer.
but yeah, no, I haven't, but I've tried to make contact through the Access network that both the Institute for Collaborative Education and Lower East Side Prep are under the same executive superintendency. So I've spoken with someone with UET at Tim Lasante's office about setting up an opportunity for us to speak. It's just, I need to go that route. It's a little hard to get direct responses right now.
Oh, okay. Oh, I see. Okay.
I'm going to second.
Yeah, that was
Paul's
the only
motion.
question I heard. David, yes?
I'm just going to second Paul's motion. So maybe because they're talking about the specifics
Okay.
of that. We could
All right.
continue with general questions, but I'd like to, yeah.
Okay, so we have a motion, a resolution, which I emailed to all of you. And
I can
Thomas-
share it if you'd like.
Yes, that would be good.
Sure. It's a couple pages, so let me know if you need me to scroll.
Okay, May, you want me to read this?
Yes, please.
Okay, got it. Whereas the Institute for Collaborative Education, NICE, NYICE, is a District 1 school for middle school students in grades 6 through 12 with 25 years experience working with racially and socioeconomically diverse student body. And whereas NICE model of schooling provides supports that include robust counseling program featuring 3 full-time social workers and several social work interns. And NICE is a member of the New York Performance Standards Consortium and a progressive learning environment where students engage in project-based learning and complete individualized. Can you put it a little bit up, please? A little bit further up, sorry.
I'm not
Yeah,
sure
I
what,
need it at the beginning, I'm sorry.
sorry, okay, oh, up, I apologize.
You can make
Okay,
it smaller if you like. My eyesight's
Sure.
pretty good.
how's that?
Yeah, that's, yes. So where students engage in project-based learning and complete individualized academic projects in place of the New York State Regents exams. And whereas NICE, which was founded by a social worker who grew up in the village, has consistently eschewed practices known as the school to prison pipeline by avoiding punishment for behaviors. And whereas NICE has an extensive history of working with individuals to heal and grow from experiences in which they cause harm or are harmed themselves, often referred to as restorative practices. And whereas its student-centered model could provide D1 students in the many progressive elementary schools priority placement in a 6 through 12 school where 95% of the students in the past 2 years have graduated on time, enrolled in higher education or workforce development programs. And whereas NICE's rigorous preparation for higher education results in students outperforming Bronx Science and others in the New York Science and Engineering Festival competition, whereas NICE offers 4 robust arts programs, music, theater, photography, and visual arts, all of which coach students towards authentically producing and presenting their work. Programs engage novice artists who in some cases find their passion and pathway to higher education through the arts. Students commit to their arts education, attend arts programs in college, including music conservatories and visual arts schools, perform at New York City music venues such as Drum throughout the year, stage productions at the Wow Cafe and LES, and show their work at the Met. And whereas students have gone to play Division I basketball, graduate from 4-year colleges, start art collectives housed in the LES, Onyx Collective, or return to NICE as part-time employees, we work with students to find their best way forward using many forms of support to guide our children through adolescence. Whereas NICE is increasing social and economic diversity through diversity in admissions pilot, in the 2021-2022 school, the school will set aside 65% of seats for students eligible for free and reduced price lunch to serve historically underserved low-income students of color. And whereas NICE currently is inhibited by the cramped space, which limits the school's ability to grow programs. For example, in the sciences, a flexible space is needed to house a hydroponic garden and include a digital fabrication studio. The counseling and growing restorative justice programs can be expanded with appropriate spaces. Currently, the school's three full-time social workers do not have office space, but instead must use 3 spaces as classrooms that do not meet the code for DOE classroom and offer grossly insufficient space for learning. And NICE proposes to relocate to the Martha Valle campus, where the school could offer priority in admissions to D1 students for at least 60% of the seats, and would offer a quality 6 through 12 school option to mitigate the need for D1 students who leave the district for middle school. Can we go further down?
That's it.
That's it.
Oh, we still need a therefore, but
Yeah.
it would be therefore, the therefore would be to support the proposal to relocate to Montevideo campus.
Yeah, there is a therefore over here. Therefore, be it resolved that Community Board 3 supports, and then what you just said, May.
Oh, where's the there? I don't see the
I
there.
see it on the email, but it finishes off.
Okay,
It
gotcha.
might have gotten cut off.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think it made it to the Word version.
Okay.
I can see if I have it in the email.
But that's where it finishes. It just says what I just read.
Okay, David?
Yeah, I was just going to ask if there is anyone who doesn't think we should support it. And if there is, let's go to a vote pretty quickly after we get the language together. I mean, I said the wrong verb in that last sentence, but if everyone is in agreement, we can get to a vote pretty quick.
Okay.
Any hands raised? I don't see any hands raised.
Okay, so do we do a roll call for that, May?
Yes.
You might want to get the language in here.
I just put some language in the
It's very
chat.
simple, therefore, okay.
I just put some language in the chat that Larissa can put in.
And just stylistically, there's a
There
whereas
you go.
missing here or there.
Therefore, be it resolved, the Manhattan Community Board 3 supports the New York Institute for Collaborative Education. I think it should be moving
Yeah, move.
to. Mhm. To Martha Valley campus, Martha Valley.
And there's a whereas missing on a few paragraphs, I think, but that
Yeah.
could just be added. Starting to get late. Maybe it was just that one.
Yeah, I think it was just.
Not capitalize it.
Okay, so besides that, are there any other changes before we vote? I don't see any hands raised.
There was nothing in the discussion about, equitable distribution of slots that needs to be memorialized, right? Actually, I think it was largely.
What kind of text do you want to put in there?
I
what
don't.
kind of text
I'm
do you
just
want to suggest?
asking if there were, because there was a lot. I got to admit, I tuned out a little bit, but I was half listening, and there was some conversation about that. I don't know if there was something to memorialize. Actually, I think that they're probably excellent. That regard. I'm going to stop.
I don't know if there's something to memorialize or it can be memorialized.
Great.
Okay, so May, can we vote as is?
Yes, that's what we're doing.
All right.
Because I don't see any more changes or any more hands raised.
Okay, so I'll proceed with the roll call. May Lee,
Yes.
Thomas, yes. Larissa,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Eric, did Eric make the meeting? Okay. Shirley,
Yes.
Deborah? Deborah, did you make it? Okay.
She did not make it.
Tatiana? I saw her briefly. Tatiana, you still there?
She did pop in.
Okay.
I don't see her now.
Paul?
Yes, my vote's yes.
Thank you. Heidi? No, Heidi? Heidi, was that a yes?
Heidi's there.
Thank you. Ricky
Yes.
and Carmen?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, good. So the motion passes. And the next steps will be that it will go to the full board meeting, which is June. It's a Tuesday. It's June, I think it's June 23rd or 24th, but it's that Tuesday that week. And then they will vote on it, you know, and if it passes, then it becomes a position of the community board. And Peter, then it gets distributed to, you know, our elected officials in the area. I suppose we should also send is there someone in like a New York City Department of Education?
I can send you
Contact person that we should send it to, or Susan, do we have a regular contact? Or should it be his contact or the one, the relevant contact?
Sorry, I've been watching the debate. We have I don't think our regular contact is really
Not the appropriate one, right?
great one in DOE. If a better one could be suggested.
Yeah,
I
is
think
it
Carrie Chang? No, isn't she District 71
No,
superintendent?
it's
No, it's
Maybe
Stephanie.
District 1. All right. So
is it the plan, not the planning division? I mean, you just mentioned it, Peter, though. They
Yes.
changed their name.
school planning. I can find the relevant email address for you and the name.
That would be
Okay.
great. Thank
And
you.
my superintendent would be the other, because he can help direct the information to the appropriate recipients.
Okay, great. So so if the full board votes on it and passes it, then it will be, it would happen at the end of June.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you all very much for giving me your time this evening, and I hope I didn't take too much of it, but thank you so much.
Okay, thank you for coming.
All right, I'm headed to the nice virtual fundraiser as we speak. So,
Okay, well, good luck with the fundraiser.
thank you so much. Thank you all.
Hey, May,
Okay,
I will email that final draft to you. What the
Okay.
final therefore, unless you have that, I can email it to you.
yeah, why don't you email it, because I don't have
Sure.
it.
Okay.
Okay, so our next agenda item is BioBus. Sarah Weisberg.
Hi
Hi,
everyone. How are you doing?
Okay, good. Well, yeah, why don't you can start right ahead with your proposal.
All right, I'll dive right in. So you can see my screen.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll get right to it. My name's Sarah Weisberg. I am a scientist by training. My research background is in cell biology and biological oceanography. And I'm one of the co-founders of BioBus. One of my other co-founders is here as well, Dr. Ben Dupin-Thaler. And hopefully some of you have seen a BioBus program in action at some point, but here today to talk about a proposal for a community science lab. Before I get into the details of the proposal, just to give you a sense of our mission and why we care about this, why I'm here, why BioBus exists, is really the deep awareness that opportunities, many economic opportunities in STEM are expanding, both nationwide and in our city. And so many of the issues that we face today, of course, from COVID to climate change and beyond are science related. And yet people of color have been underrepresented in the STEM fields for decades. And that knowledge, that awareness, both in general and from my own personal experience as a scientist, is what inspired myself and Ben and others to start BioBus. We launched in 2008. We have reached over 300,000 students across New York City on mobile laboratories like the one you see here, mobile labs that visit schools. They also visit summer camps. This photo is from a summer camp program. And just to give you a little taste of it, if you haven't been in a BioBus mobile lab, they're outfitted with research grade microscopes. And the goal is to leave students feeling excited and empowered to further pursue a scientific path. So while I mentioned that we work citywide, we have had a strategic focus, really close focus in the Lower East Side for nearly a decade. This, of course, is the District 1 map. And each little bus that comes flying in here represents a school that has been visited by a BioBus mobile laboratory. So you can kind of get a sense from this map that we've really invested in trying to cover the district as a whole. And not only have we visited almost every school, but we go year after year. We've spent more than 120 days at schools in District 1. And we've invested in building relationships with students, with teachers, with school leaders. We've also really invested in building a relationship with the District 1 leadership. So we have very close connection with the district superintendent's office. In fact, we have some space in the district superintendent's office. And we also have been working over the past several years with CEC1 to the point that there was a resolution passed by CEC1 in 2019 in support of our plan to dramatically increase science to underrepresented students in the district so that they can become the next generation of scientists. That resolution covered both our continuing mobile lab programs, as well as the creation of a permanent site, a permanent community laboratory. And I'll show you the proposed location for that laboratory. Right now, the location doesn't look like much. You're probably familiar with this site. This is on 11th Street. This building is the shared campus of East Side and Girls Prep Lower East Side Middle School. Joe from East Side is here as well. And we had one of our public prep partners was here, but had to leave earlier. So the site in question really is this courtyard here, which is currently not very, does not have a lot to offer. It's unused, it's unusable in the sense that it's not accessible at all. And really it actually does, mostly collects trash from what I've seen and heard. So the idea is to fill in this site, to build upon it, to create a sidewalk accessible 2-story lab, roughly 4,000 square feet of lab space that would be, as in this image, very community facing, very transparent, and connected to, of course, a school building. The host schools, again, East Side and Girls Prep, are very committed to creating this space to the vision of it as a community resource. I wanted to give you a very quick overview of the kinds of programs that we envision, just to make it a bit more concrete of what would happen in a space like this. I should clarify that this is not by any means set in stone. This is sort of a hypothetical or abstract description of the program types. But hopefully you can get a sense for, we envision there being school day programs for classrooms, primarily, but also for student research projects. So you've just been talking a lot about PBATs, and Eastside is also a consortium school. So there's a real need for students to be able to work on their PBAT projects in a lab space. We've also envisioned collaboration between schools on student projects. We have close relationships with other academic institutions like NYU, who we know want to run student-facing workshops and would use a space like the one we're proposing. We also have existing after-school programs run by BioBus, as well as partnerships with many DYCD-funded programs through Beacon, Compass, Sonic, and through the university, through the settlement houses, as well as organizations like Ed Alliance and others. We envision there being teacher professional development workshops, public programs, and an internship program that I will talk a little bit more about briefly. But I wanted to I think this helps hopefully clarify a bit of kind of what we envision happening. And I do want to say that all of these schools listed on here are close partners of BioBus. Several of them have already signed letters of support for the project, kind of detailing how they envision using a lab space. BioBus does have many years of experience running community lab sites. So currently we run programming in a site called BioBase Harlem, which is connected to Columbia University's Jerome L. Green Science Center. It's on the ground floor here. And I'll talk just for a moment about one program that's run in that space, which is kind of visualized by this photo here, which is an internship program for high school and college students. So the young people in this image are all paid interns who work on research projects under the mentorship of practicing scientists. They mentor younger students and they're exposed to science career pathways. This particular photo was from a science career panel. So the three women in the front are all practicing scientists. And recent evaluation has shown that of alumni that we were able to contact, 96% of BioBus interns are pursuing STEM majors or minors in college. So 96% of the students who've gone through this program are still engaged in science, which is really quite incredible for us when we learned that. So, I want to see that kind of program here in the Lower East Side. I myself have been working, have been in and around the Lower East Side for as long as I remember at this point. I love this community. I know that we can really do some incredible programming here. I hope that the community board can be a part of that. And I'm really interested to hear your feedback.
Okay, we do have a question from Ricky.
Hey, Sarah, just curious, the proposal that you're having for this space, does it have to be an NY State certified lab, or does it need to meet those criteria?
It won't be, will not have any biological hazards in it. So it will be, again, it will have to be, the goal is to be accessible rather than to be,
right.
Yeah. And we worked around all of that in our Harlem space too.
Okay. And I guess my follow-up question to that is, have you guys ever worked with or partnered with the New York City Department of Health and their New York City Public Health Lab?
No, as far as I know.
Okay. I used to work at the health department. That's why I was asking about the certification portion as well too. But if it's done, obviously if there's no biologics presence, and then it doesn't need that. The New York City Public Health Labs actually on First Avenue across the street from NYU Langone.
Mm-hmm.
But they're actually going to be, they're building a brand new public health lab, and they're moving it up to Harlem Hospital's campus. And part of the work that they're planning to do, but don't quote me on this because I'm no longer there, is that not only are they building a brand new public health lab campus, but they're going to be offering internships to the local schools in and around the area as well too, and then and also engaging any of the college level, so CUNYs and any of the other schools that are locally that so it sounds almost kind of like you guys are kind of like lined up. And if anything, if you drop your contact, I think I can put you in contact with Dr. Jen Rakeman, who's the head of the public health lab there.
Sure. Very cool. It's very good to know about. And yeah, it does sound like kind of very like-minded in terms of programming.
Yep.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, if not, we have a draft resolution to vote on, for you to review and vote on. Everyone received it by email. Larissa, are you able to share your screen?
Yeah, I'm just finding the file and I'll pull that up in just a sec. There we go. Okay, you should be able to see now.
Okay, whereas BioBus Inc. is a nonprofit whose mission is to help minority, female, and low-income K-12 and college students in New York City discover, explore, and pursue science. And whereas BioBus has reached 300,000 students at more than 800 schools since 2008, primary in New York public and charter schools, as far away as Boston, California, and even Egypt and Jordan. And whereas BioBus students connect with scientists from diverse backgrounds, learn lab and research skills, practice science communication, and whereas students access and become part of the scientific community through introductory science labs, abroad our mobile labs, at their schools, after school, weekend, and summer programs, and year-long internships. And whereas BioBus, CEC1, Eastside Community School, and Public Prep are asking for support to transform the vacant courtyard on the shared campus of Eastside Community School and Girls Prep, LES Middle School, into a 4,000 square foot community lab. And whereas the sidewalk facing lab, BioBase LES, will offer hands-on science programs and a state-of-the-art research lab to the entire community with a focus on students in high needs District 1 schools. And whereas BioBus LES youth will develop knowledge and fluency in STEM, as well as deep self-assuredness derived from being treated as valued member of the scientific community. So therefore, Community Board 3 supports the proposal to transform the vacant courtyard on the shared campus of Eastside Community School and Girls Prep LES Middle School into a 4,000 square foot community lab.
Okay. Any questions? Also, Sarah, you have funding to build this lab. Is this what this is for? I'm just curious.
We are in the process of trying to, apply for and secure funding to build the lab.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, any questions about this?
Yeah, may I have a quick question?
Yeah.
Would you be able to define what you mean by a community lab? Because I understand the connection with the schools. How would the community be incorporated into it?
Well, that's for Sarah.
Right, so the idea is that most of the programming would go for other schools in District 1, as well as public programs targeted at broad community members.
Would that be like weekend programs or something?
Weekend programs, after school programs, and then school day programs with visits from neighboring schools.
Okay.
Thanks. Sarah, do you want to mention for a minute the idea of like using it as a hub for moving equipment to PS34 and other schools in the district?
Yeah, so that's the one other way. We already have strong interest from many of the schools that we've had long-term partnerships with, like PS34, in borrowing or having long-term loans of some of our equipment, and having a centralized facility would allow for microscopes and other equipment to be kind of distributed around the community. That's another kind of
Great. Shirley? Shirley
So I
Fennessy.
guess my question is around, I love that there's a central hub. So if there are new community centers or new programs that develop in the area, how would we incorporate the ability to take access of the biobus and the new location? So is there a priority for East Side and LES prep, or is there, like, how are you thinking about your enrollment for programs that you might offer, and how will we make sure that we include all the schools, not only PS 34, but other schools that there might not be a relationship with, or community organizations or centers where children could really use the access for the biobus or the, or the STEAM facilities? I guess that, like, how are you thinking about your enrollment, and how will that play out, I guess? Because it's located, specifically for East Side and Lower East Side girls prep, but are there other ways that you're thinking about incorporating other schools and, community centers or programs or CBOs or, whatever it may be, into this whole opportunity? This is my question.
Absolutely. No, it's a great question. I'm glad you asked. So, I think one of the reasons why I think that BioBus is well positioned to do that is because we have so many existing relationships, and kind of chief among them, with leadership at the district level. So, for example, in the CEC1 resolution that I mentioned just briefly, there's detailed, line by line program commitments that we set and we revisit with District 1 and CEC1 leadership every year, where we kind of set clear expectations, like we are going to do 30 mobile lab visits across the district. And not only are we going to do 30 mobile lab visits, but let's talk about which schools are the highest needs schools and prioritize according to feedback that we get from, the people who know best, right? Where the highest needs are. And I would hope that you, those of you on this call, would help us have similar priority lists for non-school parties, for other CBOs, as you mentioned, for potentially, there's all kinds of organizations that we've already worked with. But I know there are others that we don't have relationships with yet. So I really, I've seen the power of setting very explicit targets, right? Saying, okay, we have to go to 30 schools, we have to visit 30 schools, spend 30 days in the district this year, and being held accountable to that with our key stakeholders, and, revisiting those targets at least twice a year to make sure that we're on track and that there hasn't been any drift from the initial intention. So that's the process that I most clearly see. And I hope that makes sense. And I should say, just again, while this is based at the campus of Eastside and Girls Prep, in large part, that's because there's a great a space there that will work, that we can make this space that will be accessible from the sidewalk, that you don't need to go through the schools buildings in order to get into. And both schools are fully committed to making this a community resource, and it's been that way for many years now, of kind of thinking about this.
Okay, I'll take one more question from Paul Rangel.
This is just the motion, call the question, so we can vote on the resolution.
Yeah, I don't see any other hands raised for questions. So let's. Okay, if there are no other questions, then we will vote on this resolution. Okay, Thomas?
Yes, give me a second. I'm pulling up my screen here. Okay, Mei Lee,
Yes.
Thomas, yes. Larissa,
Yes.
David?
You're on mute, David.
Maybe I did it too fast. I did try and I meant to say yes.
Thank you. Eric? Guess he's not here. Shirley?
Yes.
Deborah? Tatiana? Paul?
Yes.
Heidi?
Yes.
Ricky?
Yes.
And Carmen?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, very good. So that motion passes. And as you heard, similar with the other one, it's going to go to the full board meeting, which is the last Tuesday in January. And if they vote to approve, then it's the, it's a resolution that, you can use to show our support.
Thank you all so much. Thank you.
Okay, and in terms of, we have this regular contact list of elected officials and agencies, but I don't know if right now there's no specific like Department of Education or other agency that we need to contact. If there is someone that's outside of our list, then you should send something to Susan.
Okay, I will.
Yeah, otherwise you can use it, for your funding applications.
Thank you so much. And I really look forward to working with you to kind of make this happen.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Okay, so our almost final agenda item is the district needs statement. I sent an email, we'll spend about 10 minutes on that. I sent an email to you this afternoon. You will see that some statistics have been updated. The text is color coded. I mean, there's some color highlighting, 3 different colors to show, where statistics still need to be updated. Maybe there's some update of qualitative information and one other thing. Susan, did you have something to add about that?
Just about the process.
Yeah, that would be
So
good.
I think we now have 2 different documents. The one with the color coding, which is where Kayla, our consultant, went through and updated things. And then I believe you have another one with the technology inserts, right?
Yeah, I just inserted one sentence in the beginning, and then I took the statistic about the lack of access in our neighborhood and stuck it on top and said that basically I just put that in the first paragraph and said it applies to everything.
What I'd like to do so that it won't get confusing, I want to avoid what we did last year, is if we could take those technology inserts and insert them into the document with the color coding with track changes. So what we're having is one person making all the changes in one document. And as long as it's track changes, we'll know exactly what to change. Is that okay?
Yeah. So I emailed, that's the one that I emailed to everyone, and I worked off of the one that Jim sent. So it's not like a separate thing.
Yeah.
And then when we make any changes tonight, we can send it back to
it should,
Kayla
yeah.
and
So
Jim.
I'll be on the one that Jim sent, and it should be shown as track changes.
Okay.
So we need to add the new technology stuff into that.
It's been added. We just have to open it. Hold on. Oh, Larissa, can you open it or?
Sure, I have it up. I can share.
Okay. So that was it. You see, that was the thing that I added. I took a sentence out of the technology and put it up there.
Okay,
And then
but
I
it's
said-
not, yeah, it doesn't show us track changes, so she's not gonna know how to do that.
Well, when I sent it to her, it was, maybe it's off.
You sent it
Oh,
to,
you-
you didn't send anything.
Are
to
you
her.
in Google? No, I didn't send anything to Kayla. I did. I mean, not to Kayla, to Jim, but Jim said.
I'm
"Don't
not in
bother."
Google Docs. This is a Word document, so that may be why you're not seeing.
Okay, so,
Okay, I will share then. If you allow me to, I mean, does it matter? I have it in track changes. Does it matter right now?
no, as long as I get it in track changes, that's all I care.
Okay, all right.
I just
Do
don't
you
want to
want-
miss anything.
Okay, May, do you want to share? Or do you want me to put it back up? You
Let
have
me-
co-host abilities now. You should be able to share.
Okay, just wait 1 minute then.
Sure.
I'm sorry, just wait 1 minute. Oh, here, no, it's the BioBus. Oh, June 4th, okay. Oh, Health and Human Services. Okay. Oh, can you allow the other one, the painting?
Oh, sure. Okay. You are both co-hosts.
You see it now? So that was the change, the one change that was made, that I made to the thing that Jim sent this afternoon. And then I highlighted some more things, made that blue highlight to things that I thought could use some qualitative change. And the reason why is because we had sent emails to various people and asked for some updates, but we never got a reply back yet. You know, emails about the NYCHA, facilities, about the pay parity. So that's why the only thing is that there's more highlighting in the aqua color. So that's it. That's the only change I made. Does anyone? So the process, so Susan, could you describe the timeline to us? We're to vote on it in July. Is that correct?
Well, we're not voting. No, we're going to do the same thing we did last year. We're going to vote on everything in October, but we're going to we planned on finalizing in June or July if we need to. So we're finalizing it and then putting it aside so we can do the priorities. Meanwhile, if we do get an updated stat after you finalized it, we can still put that in.
Okay. So does anyone have any comments on this or other things they feel need to be updated?
Can we go through an order?
Oh, you mean like show it to people? Go through the order?
Yeah, let's just go down section by section. I mean, hopefully we're not going to start from scratch on all of this since we've gone through it all. But if we can just go section by section and make sure all the inserts are correct.
Okay, so I'll just let the committee know this is the same thing that you looked at last month, except for the highlights and some updated stats. Okay, so this technology piece here has been, this section has been added. It's put in the beginning, just to highlight it. It can be put anywhere else as well. So it takes the statistic from about the disparity, puts it up there, and then a sentence about how this disparity will affect all CD3 residents' access to school, healthcare, and social services. And this must be addressed.
I would try and maybe just change the wording. It must be addressed to have it maybe something a little bit more specific, but with that, just more specific about being necessary for this access, but we can do that. I mean, I could ask Kayla to do that.
Okay, you're saying make the language stronger is what you're saying, right?
Yeah, about this must be addressed. Just make that section a little bit stronger.
Okay. Okay, so next is education, which we did not change at all. And then the blue highlights mean that it's some potential to update qualitative.
Okay. So I think the social workers are this is for a year from now. I think it's gonna be totally out of date because of all the money coming in, but I wouldn't know. As far as a change, I mean, we know there's going to be a lot more social workers. I don't know if, something to have continued, to have it continued or kind of baseline of the more social service staff on a permanent basis.
Yeah, I mean, there will be more, but they'll still not be enough.
Yeah.
I mean,
if you don't mind,
yes,
I'd just like
Thomas.
to mention, I've looked in the principal's budget and we've been allocated the social workers to come to the school as per the federal funding. However, the job posting expires 2022. So we'll be covered for this year, but after this year, we don't know, it's indeterminate whether there will be additional funding.
That was exactly my point, that it must be continued, must be continued.
Many people say the stimulus funding is just a shot in the arm. So it doesn't mean that things will be baseline, but you said it needs to be continued. Okay.
So you don't want to change that at all?
Oh, so what do we want to change it to?
I would acknowledge that social service staff are increased for a one-year basis and must be the fund and must be the need. I'm trying to think as I talk. Something about the need is a continuing need, and this must be a permanent addition to the social service staff.
Should I add it now?
Sure.
This is a continuing need and must be added
on a permanent basis.
On a permanent basis.
Yeah, again, we can just try and work the wording in a little bit, if it needs to.
Okay.
Is this not the place to say something about baselining the funding?
The what?
Baselining funding, is that?
No, we don't put funding requests in here.
But that's how we would potentially get it to be permanent.
No, that's in our budget priorities.
Yeah, so
Okay,
here
I
we're
totally
saying the need
understand
is
that,
to
so I
be
think I'm
permanent,
correct.
and then later on we talk about baselining.
Right, this informs the budget priorities.
That is exactly what I asked. Thank you.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand.
Okay, so for the technology, I just edited a little bit to the language to say that this need in the schools is more urgent because schools plan to use technology in learning and communications.
And we'll still have remote learning for snow days and when school isn't open.
Right, so that's why I meant the greater use of technology, or maybe
Yeah.
So that's what I meant by that.
Yeah.
So they use it in learning and they use it in communications. they're relying on it more and more to like communicate with parents, you know, and telling parents like they got to go on this website and, you know, they got to sign up for these accounts. So, and they've always had it, but they are relying on it more and more. And I think they will. And they relied on it very heavily last year, you know, so it's just
I would say they still needs to be addressed. I would we'll try and figure out maybe a little more specific, stronger language for that.
okay. After school programs, I'm sorry. Oh, there was a statistic that was updated. Oh, this is the need for there's some potential for qualitative update. And then we talk about the need for a new school. What does purple mean again? Let's see.
I don't know, it's on the
Purple mean.
top.
Oh,
That's
okay.
the
No
update available.
updated data available. So these are notes from Kayla, who's just been, you know, looking at statistics. So she's just letting us know.
So we should just leave it as, I mean, keep it in as is, right? I mean, we don't need that updated.
It probably is pretty much the same.
Yeah, so we'll just keep as is.
I mean, that was from that study they did, but I don't know if they've done a new study. Okay, and then this thing about the rapid approach of the 2023 deadline, we need to. It was a potential for some change, or at least change in the language.
Is this what we had before?
Yeah.
Okay, because we're really not, you know, we generally don't ask for funding in this. And I'm wondering if maybe we want to include what we're really been asking for, and which is an extension of the deadline. I think it's more likely to get an extended deadline, which DOE has said they would support.
Well, by then we will either have gotten it or we're done, right? I mean, it's not a need, it's I mean, the need is for the space, right? So the extension of the deadline is just the action or the thing that we have to do.
Right. Okay, I mean, we worked last year, it's fine.
You know, I mean, this technically, I mean, we're going to be really strict about it. That whole sentence is nothing about needs. Okay, this is about the maintenance and NYCHA and the, you know, of the community and the senior facilities. So we just needed an update from those settlement houses who are having the problems.
That's right. Nobody ever answered me, did they?
No. So we will get an answer from them.
Melissa did. She was going to get me specifics, but she did already tell me that all the needs still existed.
Oh, okay.
She said all the situations still existed.
Okay. So we'll and then we'll just wait for the specifics to see if we need to change anything.
And if we don't get them, we can just, you know, leave as is.
Okay. So this is the pay parity, and then the next section is about the pay parity. So there was some legislation that was passed, and you know, one of the things that was mentioned in that Gail Brewer's meeting, I mean, I didn't stay for the whole thing. When it was about the recovery, the American Recovery Act funding, she said that this legislation took care of this pay parity, but it did not take care of pay parity for special ed, you know, these after school special ed teachers. So there was still a need there.
So why don't you
So we just
say
have to
for that
find out more.
last line, pay parity for, and just put in what you just said, the special ed. Just change the last line to say that.
Is still needed for what's it called, after school. No, I think it was the parity between yeah, well, let's just check with them. It was the parity for teachers who are paid by DYCD funding, and okay, check. Okay, so we're going to check that, what exactly it is, which special ed teachers and which after schools. Is it just the after schools funded by or at CBOs or what?
Could you,
Okay.
can you check that?
Yes, I will check.
Okay.
Put my name there, in fact. Okay. Okay, in senior citizens, okay, the pink highlight means there was no data
No update.
available to update.
No update. So we'll just keep those.
Okay. I don't know what the yellow means. What does the yellow mean? No, there is no yellow, right? Oh, updated.
It means it's updated.
Oh, okay, updated quantitative data. Okay, so there has been some updates, right, of quantitative data about the senior centers and the NORCs. There's no changes here. These were all from last year and there are no changes or updates. And there was,
What does yellow mean again?
oh, it means it's been updated
Okay,
by Kayla.
good.
I thought this was the same as last year, but it's highlighted in yellow.
Looks like the same.
And there's some, oh, okay, so this is definitely this stuff about the food security. Yeah, oh yeah, we definitely need to update it qualitatively.
So who's going to update though? It looks like that is an information she can get.
I will, you know, I can ask Eric.
Okay.
He's the best person. I mean, he has the information in his head. It's just getting out of his head and putting it into the paper.
I would take out where it says including Grand Low Cafe. I don't think you need to, you know, I would just put a period after local food vendors. I don't think you would need to mention one specific one for a district need thing.
No, you don't.
Yeah, just do that. Delete.
And and actually that market closed last year, right? So we still need to talk about it.
No.
The associated, it's been a while, right?
Yeah. Oh, they shouldn't talk about closures of supermarkets on 14th Street because we've had at least 2 new ones open.
Okay. So we delete the whole thing. Yeah, okay, look. And then something needs to be updated here too. These coupled with the increase in habits and content. Okay, well, there still is a continuing need, right?
Yeah, I guess. Seems that way.
There still is but I will ask Eric, just in
Wait,
terms of
why
the
are we-
language.
I'm sorry, we were saying that we need access to fresh food and produce. What is the documentation for that? We're not a food desert. I don't know that that's true. Maybe that people can't afford it, but there's, when you say access, what does that mean? Does that mean financial access? Because we're not a food desert, it's available in the district.
Oh, because of all the food pantries?
Pardon?
Because, why is it available? Because of the food pantries?
Well, there's plenty, I mean, we have plenty of places that sell fresh food and produce. When he says it's not accessible, maybe he means financial. And if that's so, we should say that.
I agree completely. I argued against this last year. This is not a food desert.
Yeah,
It is accessible. It may not be, but whoever was pushing for it was basically, I don't want to insult anybody.
Okay.
But they were coming from a place of food deserts are bad, and they inserted it here, but it isn't actually describing the situation here. We do have, things are expensive here, and there is poverty embedded here, and maybe that is a better way to phrase this whole thing.
Yes. I mean, food deserts are a fact, and it is a fact that we are not a food desert.
No, we're not.
So maybe he means, if you want to say, people can't afford food, that's a whole different thing and it should be said very differently.
Okay, so so people definitely cannot afford food.
Well, what percent, again, if you look at our income, you can't say we can't afford food. You can talk about people, with percentage of people under a certain income, which we can document it, but just saying words doesn't show anything.
It was also, I guess it was trying to, and it was basically warning against a slide toward. Remember, this was attached to the closure of the groceries. And so, maybe it was intended to be, there shouldn't be a slide toward becoming a food desert, which was a risk.
CB3 is not in danger. We have an area around two bridges where Pathmark closed. That's one specific area.
Yeah, and then this area was north, at the north end, where all the closures were happening, basically because of the 14th Street L train work. And this was a paragraph about anyway, it was about that area. If we want to repurpose the paragraph,
yeah,
I would not be a bad idea, and it should talk probably about income and affordability.
Yeah, but we need.
Carmen was about to speak up, I thought.
What?
I think Carmen was trying to speak up. I think she would have something productive.
Carmen?
No, I was saying that, this area doesn't have any number of, farmers markets that pop up constantly to give, food, and they do accept food stamps, because my seniors do it all the time.
Right.
It would have to be where it's closing and what's coming up in its place. I know that a lot of people have said about Whole Foods and even Trader Joe's that, where they're going to now, they may not be able to get there, but they do. And there's been a huge increase in food delivery, particularly in our area. So I would have to look into those and see, what percentage of food delivery has gone up, especially since the pandemic.
Okay.
During the pandemic, we had a clear problem with food security because there were so many food pantries and that type of service suddenly were cropping up, and there was a huge demand. So people were at the edge of food insecurity before the pandemic began. I think that is pretty clear to me. I mean, evidently.
Okay, well, one of the first sentence, we can see if that statistic needs to be updated. That the Lower East Side was reported to have a food hardship rate of 36%, and the 5th highest in all of Manhattan.
Okay, that's a statistic that captures what I was just saying, that people were on the edge before the pandemic.
Mm-hmm. So let's see if there's an update for 2021 or 2020.
I
mean, that's the
suspect
end of-
there's not, or she would have updated. We'll definitely check, but I would assume that it would have been updated if there had been a available statistic. But it's,
Right.
I mean, it's cited where it came from, so we'll check again.
Okay,
I think the sections about before, million people in New York City were food insecure. I don't think that's really says anything about CB3. You know, I don't see that whole thing from before, you know, about New York City doesn't really say anything about the need in Community Board 3.
The fifth highest in Manhattan, if we had the rate.
After that,
Yeah, you're probably right. It probably does not.
yeah, where it starts with
Experience, which
before
is an increase.
coronavirus. That
Well,
says
the
nothing
increase
about-
over pre-COVID levels, that last part is kind of is important. So I'm going to disagree that this is irrelevant, although it is starts with a New York City statistic.
I didn't say it was irrelevant. I said it doesn't
I
say
know.
anything about CB3.
Well, an increase of
And-
38%, it stands to reason that it also increased in our district.
But we don't know if that was anywhere near.
It might have
30.
been 37% in our district. It
If
might
I
have
could
been
just say-
45%.
This is going to be for, so this statistic is for pre-COVID, and the document is going to be for July 2022. So if we can't find anything a little bit more recent, I don't know
Okay,
that this is going to be.
That's a good argument. And it is two statistics 1 year apart that lead to a increase during COVID. But yeah, maybe that is an older statistic. Can I recommend that we can cut the sentence after what you've already cut and the whole thing hangs together?
what are we cutting?
That's the second one. Go ahead and let's finish talking about
Before
this sentence here.
coronavirus, that one?
I was about to introduce a different topic, so I was making an error.
Which one did you want to cut?
I don't want
Oh.
to talk about that yet. I want to
Oh.
finish the sentence you had highlighted. I don't know what to do about it exactly. It is an older statistic, and I don't know that it could be updated. But it does illustrate the danger that we were in and are still in. I am certain of that. Those
Well, the way
problems
to,
don't.
yeah,
I'm sure everybody agrees. I'm sure what you're saying is true. I just don't think this does anything to prove it by July 2022.
Well,
So
if we fell off a cliff 1 year ago, we may have climbed back onto the cliff. I still think we're at the cliff.
You're correct, but again, this document is for July 2022.
okay, so what I think is that we should, that particular sentence before coronavirus over, so it compares, you know, before COVID-19 and after, which was appropriate for last year, but we're not, but now we'll be like 2 years away from it. So we should delete it, and then we should just see if we can update the thing about the food hardship rate.
Correct.
And its rate our rate compared to all of Manhattan. And if we can say that, or further update, like since COVID-19, or since last year's shutdown, if it has like stayed really bad, then that's something to note.
Yep, it
If
sounds
we're
good.
talking about need.
These things are generally too long, so we can remove that even just because it's a detail that's unnecessary. So
Okay,
I'm
remove
gonna-
that, right?
so we can move on.
Yes, we'll remove it. Hold on, let me remove.
I think some of the information in the last part of this is, while it's very true, I don't know if it's part of a need statement. You're describing what groups did and stuff like that, but I don't know if it could be, I don't know if it could be tightened up at all.
Right, but that sentence you're about to highlight, I think we can just cut that because it's almost a lead-in sentence to the rest of those details that Susan just discussed. But certainly that first sentence can be just deleted without affecting the meaning of the whole paragraph, because it's kind of restating what's in the next two with this concept of food desert almost mixed in there.
Which sentence are you saying
One
to
that-
delete?
The one you're highlighted in front of the highlight for. These closures, blah, blah, throughout the district.
One, how much?
Up to local
The whole
community.
sentence throughout the district there. there.
There?
Yeah, I think that can be entirely deleted because it's repetitive. And then we can talk about the rest if we want. It's also getting quite late. But the rest of it, I mean, what Susan was saying is not untrue. All right, it is, what Susan's saying is true. Susan,
All
say it
this
again.
stuff has been true for years, you know.
Yes, it's true. I'm saying, is it part of a need statement? And perhaps we could just tighten it up, tighten it up more.
Okay, about leaving left to fill the gaps. Okay. With
Well, there are still organizations doing it. I mean, they
Yeah.
have been, and it's great that charities self-form and organize.
Can you say maybe
not
that
ideal.
they are filling the gaps instead of have been left, just say they are, so it's clear that it's continuing? Are filling the gaps. And what does it mean in the engineering of home delivery by food branch? Can we,
Well,
Can I just say for like to David's point, there's organizations like Visión Urbana and the community fridges that are doing things, but I think we need a more coordinated, systematic effort to deal with food scarcity. I guess that's what I would want to say.
what's the last
Well-
sentence, Shirley? Does that capture this at all?
I
can't-
guess
it
let
can't-
me just
yeah,
look at it.
Like the last two full lines.
So we say Lower East Side diverse population.
who
Food
are we
that is
asking to coordinate? Shirley, who are you asking to coordinate?
Well, so I guess, I mean, it's great that the nonprofits are coordinating, but I guess I would want to see like a bigger effort from, I don't know who would be the resource, but some way of sort of coordinating this food effort for, food delivery for seniors, food delivery for, the people who are homebound, whatever it is, and then sort of not necessarily just relying on the nonprofits, or if we rely on the nonprofits, that we coordinate the efforts of the nonprofits so that it's a better service for our community, for providing culturally appropriate food, providing
Shirley,
resources.
I know all of it's true, and we've
I
been
know, sorry.
dealing with it for a year, but I think we have to be
I
specific
know.
on
Okay,
who's
wait,
going to
let
be
me just-
doing this.
I don't know.
Well, but we
Sorry.
can't
I would like-
just
I
say
know.
it should
I
be
know.
done.
Well, but that's
No.
kind of, it needs to state a need. I don't think, as you've always said, stating a solution may not be the right thing to put.
But
should
you're
say
right,
stronger
but
than
this
that.
has all been dealt with outside the city. That's the issue, is this is all, I mean, I actually think it's the community groups that need to do it.
I do too.
And they've been trying to do it. They've been getting better, but I don't know if it belongs in here because this isn't speaking to the community groups. If you guys, if you think
What they
that
need is
that's-
sometimes more adequate funding. I mean, there was a time when it looked like the funding was at risk. So I kind of do, although I said it's a shame, I do think that, but I think capitalism is a shame, on some level. I don't think that
then
the
we gotta
government, I don't think the government should be necessarily organizing this effort, but they should be funding it.
So then we got to figure out, and that's a good question for tonight, because the other thing I was going to ask is what questions you want me to, separate from this, put on the agendas for the agency. So maybe we need to see what agency is funding this and ask for more funding in our budget priorities. But I would like to capture those questions tonight.
Right, so maybe we look at, what Vision Urbana is doing. We look at what Community is doing with their fridge. We look at what Snack is doing with their fridge. We look at different ways.
What we're
Okay,
looking
sorry,
is
I
who
didn't-
is funding those people.
I don't
we need-
know. I mean, we
What we
need
need
funding
to
for it.
do is just say, what agency is funding those people, and then put that in the budget priority for increased funding to increase operation, to manage operations.
Right, but right now we're
Right.
talking about the district needs. We're not
Right,
talking
so it
about the
doesn't
funding
need to be in
priorities.
here. It does
Right,
not need
but-
to be in here. It needs to
But so
be,
who, I guess, who could fund it is my question, and could it be partially city funded? Could there be a better?
Well, we could
um,
say, we could wrap with there is a need for adequate funding for these necessary programs
I would think we
and
shouldn't,
tighten up the description of the program.
I really wouldn't put that, because you don't even know who you're asking it for. And when we put this into the software, you have to link, and you're supposed to be linking needs to specific agencies. I would like to capture all of that as a budget question. Because we don't even know here. I mean, it's not saying anything. It's like adequate funding from who, for what?
So let's delete the last sentence. It's 9:26. Should we delete the last sentence? And put it in as a and see who's funding that coordination or the food pantries, and put it in as a budget priority if it's not already been addressed. Or make it a budget question.
Well, we should definitely
If
make it
it's
a
not
budget
funded.
question, but I'm trying to see if there's a way to keep it in here.
Well, it talks about an action, a solution to the problem. It's actually not a need in and of itself. Or, we can say that a problem is created by a lack of coordination. I mean, that's how you describe the need, right? If we're to be really
Yeah.
strict about it.
Is
Maybe
there such a thing? Do
lack
we
of
know?
lack of coordination among local nonprofits have created,
Has it?
what?
No, what it
Has
is, there's
it?
a lack,
Yeah.
there's the lack of coordination. Well, it's not amongst the nonprofits. The lack of coordination is amongst those who supply food and the pantries. So that's why and there's the other thing about reducing the food waste.
Well, I mean, there was tremendous lack of coordination between all the nonprofits when they were serving food.
Scrambling, yeah. So we had areas or populations that were not being serviced and others that
And
were
other people being
duplicated.
served twice, and yeah.
I see. Well,
So we can say more
let's describe that
coordination is
situation.
needed, or lack of coordination
Cause
leads
such
to
and
gaps.
such.
Right, it leads to gaps, right? Where, some people are still needed and some people have plenty of food pantry. Is that
Yeah.
what you're saying?
I
Yeah.
guess if that's the truth, that sounds like a good way to describe the
Yeah,
problem.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
gotten better, but it's still needed.
Okay. So.
But you're right about funding. I mean, there's just no thing there to oversee that coordination or make it happen.
And, if it's true, I don't know if it's true. Lack of coordination to gaps in food something.
Food delivery?
Well, not the delivery itself, but like food security, or like some people have and some people don't, is what I'm trying to say.
In
Some people get it.
Delivery to
organizations.
different populations. Oh,
In food access, or
What about in organizations serving those with food insecurity?
I think that's awesome.
Okay,
Because it kind of encompasses anybody who's a nonprofit who's trying to do this work. And then we kind of try to coordinate the funding and the services and the access. I think that's great wording.
and it includes the pantries as well as people, delivering food.
Exactly.
so just like that.
Lack of coordination contributes to gaps in food access. And I was gonna say, well, that wasn't what we said. Gaps in food access by organizations serving those with food insecurity. Was that right, Shirley?
I meant by the people
Yeah,
who need the food.
I would say multiple organizations or multiple organizations that provide I don't know,
Provide
food for-
service to.
yeah, provide
to
service,
those-
because
to
we're
those
looking
with
at
food
God's Love We
insecurity.
Deliver. We're looking at all sorts of organizations across the city. And
Right.
then we're looking at our local community organizations like the Smack Fridge and community and whatever. Like we're looking at and Vision Urbana and we're looking at like a multitude of organizations that are providing food. And then maybe looking at a larger outreach for
So,
obtaining.
so what
and
do we want to say
supplying
here?
food. I think
By
Susan's
those
good.
by those organizations serving those with food insecurity. We can change, if you put that, you could think of better wording later. If it's awkward wording, but it gives the idea. We can try and figure out better wording later.
And food delivery.
Yeah.
Okay, you're back to delivery by organization serving those with food insecurity.
I would say delivery and access, because some of these places are just either food banks or refrigerators or pantries. So food access and delivery, if we could.
Okay, I'll put it in.
Okay. Now, in the homeless stuff, Kayla updated it all, and I know there's too much. There's some stuff I want to take out. What happened is, so the hope count this year showed us huge decrease, which no one believes. And so I asked her to look for opposition to the statistics, and she found a lot of that. And I think some of it can maybe go, it's too much for this. And I think some of it could go maybe in the appendix. That whole paragraph, I think, where it says advocates warn that the Hope report.
This one.
Yeah, and let's see what's in the stuff before. Also, the one sentence above that. No, back where you were before.
Okay, this is the first
Yeah, where it
paragraph of
says,
street homeless.
while there is an overall reported drop. No, maybe you should leave that in there, because that's true. So maybe if you could just put a note to move to appendix. Move the
what to
section.
appendix?
Yeah, is everyone
This?
okay with that? Yeah. To move that
This
section.
advocates,
Yeah.
I should insert a comment or something.
Yeah, if you could just highlight and say move, if everyone's okay with that. I just thought it was too much information for there.
Like that?
Yeah.
Maybe you should leave that, maybe some of the data should go in the appendix, but I like that sentence about advocates warn. And I think that, without going into the data, so maybe after that sentence, after number 40, the footnote 43, and then where it says there were 16 sweeps, maybe that part should go into the appendix.
Okay, starting where? Starting
there were 16 sweeps on
Okay.
January 19th.
So it would be after the
starting
2020.
here.
After the 2020.
Starting here. There were 16 sweeps on January 19th.
Yeah, put that part to move to appendix.
Okay, like that, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, here is more updating.
Yeah.
More.
Is this all new stuff? I didn't actually see it till today. No, I think that it looks like it's all stuff from last year. I don't know why it looks like it's an insert.
Yeah, I don't know why it's in purple.
Yeah.
Or
it's all
maybe
stuff from last year.
Okay.
Okay, the pandemic profoundly, I don't even remember that. Where did that come from?
I did not touch this at all.
Okay.
This
move
is,
back.
this, it
Let's
came
look and
to
see.
us like this.
Let's
It
see if
came
we
to me
want to
like
keep,
this.
let's see if we want to keep it.
Where?
No, I think further down. Keep going.
Shelters and supportive housing.
I'm trying to remember, there's something you hit that it just looked very strange.
The
Yes,
pandemic
yes,
profoundly
yeah.
altered. Oh, that was not there last year. I
Yeah,
don't
I
know who added that. It wasn't me.
Yeah, Kayla must have added that.
Okay. What do you guys think?
Wow, look at, I didn't realize that about the number of deaths.
Yeah, I would say keep that in. That's important.
So all this is important, right?
It looks like a lot for a need statement.
Well, maybe we could make a statement like the total number, the deaths increased, and then put all the numbers in an appendix, or
Okay. What does everyone else think? I mean, my only criticism of it is just that it's too much.
I would say
But
I would say take out the sentence that says according to the NYC Coalition for the Homeless, callous practices at shelter intake. Found eligible for shelter. I would take that sentence out.
that's just a quote, right? Which you just want to delete it according to.
yeah, just delete it then.
And I mean the individuals coming to the program.
Next sentence, I don't know that we need.
Yeah, or at least we don't need the second half of it, like had
Yeah.
little to no experience in the shelter system. I don't think that's super.
That whole sentence?
Mhm.
You mean this whole sentence?
Yeah, I would take out the whole sentence because it does kind of switch between, in my mind anyway, between families and individuals. So I would take that sentence out as well.
Okay, the many of the individuals like that, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I do think the next sentence is important. Many attempt to access the shelter system, but abandon it for safety concerns. No question. Yeah, I think just deleting that sentence that we just mentioned. I think the other, what is it, 2 or 3 after that are good.
Okay.
Wait a second. What about, there's no, if the city offered all homeless single adults the option of single occupancy hotel rooms, oh, it's cited. Okay, never mind. I was gonna say, where's that from? But there's a citation. Okay, the next paragraph, she took out the number of shelters. I think that should stay in.
I don't know if you guys changed the copy you sent me earlier today, Susan, it says CD3 is home to over 14 shelters. Oh, I see. You guys have a strike through.
Yeah, I would maybe. I would take out that delete that.
Isn't it this thing, you mean delete this first sentence?
Yeah, put that back. Yeah, just keep that back in.
Is it deleted or?
I don't know why she deleted it.
I don't know how you put it back in. I'm just gonna make a note. Oh, it was deleted.
Yeah.
I'm
Can we
not
just
sure.
reject? Can we?
I don't know how, I'm just gonna make a note and
Yeah, just make a
send it
comment
back.
to return, keep back in.
Okay, because I'm not sure how to do it. Keep this. Oh no, I'm sorry.
And then what
The
about
first,
the,
you want to keep the first sentence, right? This one, what was CD3 is home to?
yes.
Yeah.
So what about the next sentence? I would say we should delete the next sentence, continue to delete it. But what about the part where it says in 2017? Well, that's very old, 2017,
Yeah.
2018, but that's still true. The majority of those interviewed stayed in this system at some point, were unwilling to return. And difficult, I think the rest of that is important.
Okay, it just seems like a lot, but it's important, whatever you think.
So you doesn't keep it as it is?
I would just,
Yeah.
that whole paragraph, I would delete the second sentence and keep the rest.
Or when you say
Perception.
second? Oh, the perception by
Yes,
many
would say delete
experiencing
that
homeless.
and keep
Is
the
that this to put the perception by many people experiencing homelessness that the shelters are unsafe appear to contribute to the many home refusing service unless there's a safe haven bed available such along in the community they are connected to.
Okay. so
Delete that one, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's true, but it doesn't need to be here.
Okay.
I think maybe the next paragraph we might be able to get rid of.
Oh, I'm sorry. The next one, the one about one of the lessons learned.
Yeah, what do you think about that? Is it worth keeping that in, Heidi?
I think you should delete it because I think that it kind of repeats the above. Maybe
Yeah.
you should keep the
Yeah.
last sentence where it says CB3 has long advocated for more safe havens.
Yeah, so we should delete that.
The whole paragraph or just up to CB3?
To CB3.
You mean like that?
Yeah.
Okay, has long advocated for more safe havens as well as more affordable housing as part of the solution to end homelessness.
Okay, where it says in the coming year.
Oh.
That's out of date. It should say DHS. I would just take out that whole thing, right? In the
Yeah, that's old. It's not true anymore.
What about the peacekeepers, right?
Yeah.
How about DHS will ensure residents are safe within the shelters from drug dealers and others who prey on shelter residents?
I don't know. What do you think about getting rid of all of that?
Is there still an outdoor drug market?
Well, there isn't now because there's no shelter open.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you can get rid of it.
Get rid of all of that.
Yeah, that whole paragraph, I think can go.
The whole thing.
Yeah.
Okay, the whole thing. Like that.
Yeah.
Made safer. Okay.
And then the
You're
last
sending us, so Manhattan Outreach is sending us updated stuff in July. Their fiscal year ends at the end of June, and they're giving us new stats in the beginning of July.
I think the only thing I would say about the last paragraph, when I read it earlier, I kind of wanted us to be more clear when we say we have encouraged DHS to support this substance abuse joint effort. We're talking about harm reduction. Like, should we spell it out what we're talking about? Are we talking about like wet shelters where people can drink or?
We were talking about harm reduction. We've given it up, and it's the organizations are doing it on their own now.
Mm-hmm. So we want to keep it general like that. We've encouraged DHS to support this substance abuse joint effort. Maybe it should be substance abuse harm reduction effort.
I don't know, I might even, well, I would just leave it as it is.
Okay. 9:44, almost done?
Yeah.
Okay, so I think let's go.
Yeah, we're on page 12 of 13. So I think
Okay, so
we're
let's keep
almost
going.
done. Homelessness in the subways.
This looks like there's something wrong with the formatting there.
Yeah, I'm not sure what's wrong with it.
It's a combination of the years 2020 and 2019.
Yeah, it's all together.
Yeah, it's the formatting. It's just the formatting. So I don't, somebody made some changes here.
Okay.
Well, I don't know what to say, but okay, we deleted stuff about the intervention program. Well, the way to look at this is don't worry, I won't do anything bad. You. Okay, that's what it is. That's the one you don't show the changes.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. Well, still, it's like that. Okay.
That's from last year, the 20% that was.
I
from
don't
last
know
year.
why it came out like that. Okay, it's just.
It must be something the way Kayla.
Yeah, it's the way. It's just it's the formatting or the format that I have opened it up. But she made some changes, so.
Well, that's not true anymore. Where it says currently all people are evicted from the subway system. That's not true. So I have to take that out. That was true when she put it in.
Oh, every night. Oh, okay. Oh, so she's been working on this a while, right?
Yeah. And we can't say the current situation because this is for July 22. So I would say the situation caused by COVID, just take out current. I don't think we need to make the following points and suggestions, right? That doesn't belong in there.
They also crossed out intervention programs appear not to be working, and she crossed out. Oh.
I would take out that whole paragraph.
The MTA report.
Yeah. What do other people think? I think that was last year.
Yeah, I don't know if that's what. Oh.
Yeah, take it out.
Okay, and that's okay. The stuff about the subway system.
Again, I think the MTA report, that whole paragraph should come out. Where it says the right below that, yeah. I mean, I don't think that's a need statement.
How about the subway system was closed? Beginning May 6th. Well,
I don't know that we need any of that. What do you think, Heidi? Anyone else?
it talks about the period it was closed.
Yeah, I don't know that that's going to be relevant a year from July.
Yeah.
Okay, homelessness in parks.
That's still true. That's still true. Is
That's
that
it? Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Is K2 still an issue? You have K2 issue listed there as one of the trendy drugs.
Yeah, no, they're saying the homeless outreach people are the ones reporting to us about K2.
K2 fentanyl and heroin are still, all this is still true?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so can I stop this share? Are we done looking at this?
As far as I'm concerned.
All right, so I'll save that and I will send it.
Okay. So the next thing, and it is, and we don't need to do it now, but I need to get the information like within the next 2 weeks. Any questions we want to ask the agencies? You don't need to vote on it because it's not taking a position, it's just asking questions. And May, I think you had some kind of posted or parked someplace from earlier months.
Post it, I'm sorry.
There were some things came up that we said we would ask agencies that came up in previous meetings that I think you might have a list or start up a list someplace.
Yeah, we were gonna start up a list but I think to have a better list, you said a good way to ask good questions, because the kind of would be to look at the executive budget and
Right.
ask questions about the Is the executive budget the latest thing we should look at?
It is,
to ask-
yeah, it's on the city council. Well, not the executive budget, the testimonies from the agencies at the city council executive budget.
Right, so there were some testimonies from the agencies, but then city council members also asked questions.
Right.
So some of those questions could be relevant to us, especially
Yes,
if they're for
I-
funding things that are in our area.
Right.
So is that a good way to start? I mean, if we want to be like really be useful, is that the type of thing we should be
That is
doing?
very useful. I do that every year, but I don't know that I certainly don't have time to do it all this year. That's a very useful thing.
Right, so I only listened to the DYCD hearing because I just happened to have time. I mean, I know they're all on recorded, and it was because the agency that I just knew the best. But if you would like committee members to listen to some of the other hearings and do the same thing, so that you don't have to listen to all of them.
The other thing, what I always did, because this first time they recorded, I always just went to the city council website and read the testimony from the agencies and got questions there. But you're right, if you have the time to listen to questions from the council members, that gives you additional information. But I need it like within 2 weeks. I have to
All right.
look at my date. We have to submit them very soon.
Okay, so Heidi, that's what I was asking you, for example, do you already know that stuff and can you just do something, or can you listen to the city council hearing to get the questions that we could ask? I mean, do you follow it for your job? If you do, then
No,
you've done it already. Okay.
I don't have hours upon hours to sit and listen to city council testimony. I don't know how long or when it is and all that stuff. So I could potentially listen to pieces of it.
It's like one meeting. It's like this one meeting they have. So they have meetings for different agencies.
When is it?
It happened already. So you go to the website and look for that one meeting where it happened. I mean, I can go look and point you to it. And so they're recorded. So in the old days, you had to go, you had to go there and listen to them, but now they're recorded.
And again, for the agency, I find it faster to read their transcript rather than listen to them.
Okay, so if you can find, the transcript is also on the website?
Yep.
Okay, I didn't know that.
So I guess my question is, so if there's a way that you can just point us to the links where we can read the transcripts, that would be helpful. And then within 2 weeks, we can provide you with additional information regarding all the things we just spoke about. I think that would be helpful. I'm sorry, I don't mean to be, I don't know what the word is, like, I would be great if you could just point us to the location to find that. And I'm happy to read and to finesse whatever we spoke about earlier.
Agreed. That makes it more accessible. Like if we know where, when, if we can just read the transcript, I think that makes it a lot more accessible. We can it's manageable that way.
Okay, I always just listen to the recordings. I didn't know where the transcripts were, but I can go look for them. There's somewhere where the recordings are, right? Susan?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, even if you just point us to where the recordings are, maybe we can find the transcripts. That is fine too.
Agreed.
Okay. So, okay. So would it be helpful if we each took an agency? I mean, there's so many agencies. There's DYCD. I don't know what to do about DOE because it's, because there are so many things, and we also probably want to check in with CEC, although there's a few.
You can ask CEC. I'll tell you, the 12 boards are doing this together, and DOE always has board 7 always asks really good. their situation is very similar to ours. And they always ask really good questions. So if people have questions, we'll add them, but I wouldn't be so worried about researching them.
Oh, okay.
What's the neighborhood of Board 7, or what's the CEC of Board 7? Just so I know.
It's the Upper West Side, right?
Yeah.
So like District 3 for CEC, and then
We're not asking for, we're not
No, I
asking
know. I'm just
for
trying to figure out.
Community Board 3. These are borough-wide, they're borough-wide consults. So we're asking about funding for programs.
Sure. No, I'd like to look at CV7, if that's like a similar location.
Look at them for what?
Oh, just like for what their needs are and how they've.
No, we don't need to know what their needs are. Their needs are and ours are not the same at all. So don't even, it's the Upper West Side.
Their school needs, they actually have. Last year, they were #1 in the income diversity. That's actually similar to ours, but I think it's a waste of time to look at their needs. It's not gonna, it's not gonna.
No, I know, I'm familiar with District 3 and their issues. So, and it's very segregated, above 120th Street. So like, I get that. I just was curious if there's something I could look at that would help me just with our needs. But if not, that's fine.
Yeah, we're not talking about the needs. We're talking about the budget. The budget
We're talking
questions.
about budget questions for DOE.
Okay, so so let's just leave that alone for a while. And then we said we might want to have if we can figure out our agenda, we could have our own district meeting with DOE, like the way we did last year, right?
We can do what we did last year, but we need to have an agenda of questions about CV3.
Okay, so if we do that, might be more helpful for us to think about. But that can be a little later, right?
We need to do it in July, but I would say, we can't wait till the July meeting to make up the questions. We got to give them a lot of time to research it.
Okay, we're not doing this in the fall. It has to be in the summer.
The Manhattan budgets are in September. The district level are June and July. They used to all be June, but the agencies prefer to wait till the current budget is finalized. So it'd be in July.
Okay. So in this month, okay, if we are to have a district level meeting for DOE, we have to have some agenda by this month.
Yeah, so that's something that committee members can maybe think of questions specific to our district or work. And last year we did ask CEC for, we asked them about capital priorities that, to give us their capital priorities that haven't been funded.
Oh, okay, so we'll do that again because they do go through their own process. I mean, pretty rigorous process to get those priorities down.
Yeah, so any questions you guys come up with for DOE for CV3 would be great.
Okay. And then another important agency is DIFTA, right?
Right.
Carmen, do you have the DIFTA stuff in your head?
Yeah, for now.
So Susan needs for the borough-wide budget meetings.
Yeah.
She would like some questions.
How much money goes into?
Well, not right now, this minute, but I mean,
okay. Let me just give kind of an example.
Sure.
We're going to vote on our budget priorities, and we don't want to ask for. We only have 25 priorities for the whole board for expense priorities, so we don't want to ask for, say, if they throw a lot of money into Meals on Wheels, we don't want to ask funding for that. So what we want to know at this point is there adequate funding? You don't need to ask for specific dollars, but you can say, has the funding for Meals on Wheels been maintained and increased? You can ask things like that. And that way we'll figure out, do we need to advocate for more funding or should we advocate for funding in another area?
All right,
Does that make sense?
sure.
Okay. And if you could just send me, like I say, send me questions.
Okay.
Okay.
How about technology questions from different agencies? Whether technology is adequately funded and if they expect it to continue for the following year. All the areas where you guys want technology, if you could give questions about the funding for those technology uses.
So I guess for me, I'm thinking about families and students with IEPs, especially where they might need multiple devices, like one device. Well, so there's the access of internet, which is huge, which I think the city is kind of behind. But then there's the thought about, so I know we're going into full on-site schooling, which I have some questions about, but there are students that need multiple devices, right? There are students who have IEPs who need, 2 screens or an iPad.
I'm sorry. So wait, Charlotte, let me interrupt. Susan, did you want the specific questions right now, or do you just want them?
No,
emailed to you
please
later?
no. Please don't give them to me now. Please email them. Put them in writing.
I'll email you my ideas. I have a lot of questions about that.
Don't email me ideas. Email me specific questions.
Okay.
So you guys, I don't know if everybody knows, my assistant district manager's last day is Monday. So I am in the process of hiring. I'm in the process of setting up some tech stuff in the office, along with district needs statement, a lot of other stuff. So I don't have time to go through and fix stuff. If you send me your questions, I will include them.
Okay, so I guess specifically, what kind of questions would you like me to give to you? Because I have a lot of questions.
Okay, so if there's something that you think that you're going to want to ask for funding from DOE for a program,
yes,
or for a specific program, which could include the devices, you want to know whether that program is adequately funded for the next year and expected to continue. So if you ask about the programs you're interested in, but something specific to kids with IEPs, that can be made into a question for programs serving the kids with IEPs and specific needs.
Okay, I got it. I would love to do that.
I will do that. I will email you my questions.
Okay.
And then, hopefully we'll get somebody to help you. And I'm happy to try to help it in whatever way I can until you find somebody.
Thank
but
you.
Yeah, I have a lot of questions.
You'll hopefully be voting at the full board for a candidate.
Okay, great. Awesome.
But I'm going to tell you, I don't expect anyone to be as good as Jim was.
No, as good as Jim.
Well, he had experience. I shouldn't say that. I have 3 candidates and 2 of them seem very good, but they're younger. They just don't have the experience. In COVID, because of COVID, a lot of people that were supposed to graduate did not graduate with their master's degrees.
Okay. So are we, I'm just trying to think of the agencies. So I think we've covered most of them. Okay, I'll go through the list and I can't think of anything else right now.
Okay. I'd say the most important thing for us is an agenda for a district level, because the other areas, we are going to have 12 boards putting questions together. I just wanted to make sure if you had a specific question that I would get it answered. But, for our own meeting, it's more important to have an agenda for that.
Do you think it would be worth it to have a district level DYCD meeting?
I really don't see why.
you don't see, it probably would not be useful.
Because it's for programs. So if you say you want, like Henry Street or something else, someone else, they're just going to say they should answer the RFP.
Okay. Okay, so so we have on our plate a district level DYCD meeting.
No, we don't.
No, we don't have it yet, but we would like to. But we need to come up
DYCD?
with an agenda. I'm sorry, DOE, Department of
Correct.
Education. But we
Right.
still need to come up with an agenda, and we need to come up with questions, which will help make the agenda.
And another good way to get questions is to call the heads of those programs and in our social service organizations and find out what the needs are. We've always done that more in the last year. And I think because of COVID, we didn't actually do that this year.
Yeah, I don't know how much funding, DOE, a lot of the funding goes, well, we
No,
can
I
still
meant for
talk to
all
them.
of human services, not just for
Okay.
DOE.
Okay.
So, I'm sorry, you said there was an RFP. I would really love to see that RFP because
No, I
think-
didn't say
No, there
that.
is no.
Oh, sorry,
I
I thought there
didn't
was an
say that.
RFP. I was
What
so
I
excited
said-
because I thought it could really hone in what our
What I
needs.
said was,
Oh,
suppose you want to say, I want Henry Street to have more funding for this after-school program. You can't ask for it for an organization because what the agency would say is that organization should answer the RFP for that program.
so there's no RFPs out right now with ESSER funding or CARES funding or.
I
any of
don't
those?
have any
it's not
idea
like
what's
that.
out right now. I
Okay.
don't have
All right.
any ideas when the contracts are up or anything.
Okay, no problem. Just asking.
All RFPs are always on the nyc.gov website though. So if you go, like you're interested in something for like DYCD, you can go to the website, the RFPs are always there.
Thank you.
Yeah, everyone is just making asks for things that they have always asked for because this funding is coming down and it will be spent in a
you're
certain
right.
amount of time, and they want to make sure, they use the opportunity to have it funded.
Right.
But which is not a bad thing. That's what everyone should be doing, and that's what they're doing right now.
That's right. That's correct.
Right. I guess for me also
so-
the question is where is the funding sent to? Like what is the LEA? Like what's as far as education goes, like what's the local education agency? Is it the DOE or is it CBOs? Like oftentimes like
It's
with
all on the
rates for
web, Shirley. That's
Yeah,
all
sorry.
on the website. All
Okay,
all
all right,
the
I'll go
providers
look.
are on the
Thank you.
website.
All right, sorry.
Okay, so we're gonna
Good.
move on. We're
Wrap
gonna
it
move
up.
on. I think we're done now, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Heidi, did you have something?
No, I was just saying, please, can we, finish? I'm
Yeah.
exhausted.
Yeah, it's after 10
Afterwards
o'clock,
is
guys. We
done.
can't keep on talking like this. Yeah, okay, so let's just. So I think we can, okay, we're at the end of the meeting. And if there's nothing urgent from the CABs or CECs, let us just take the final vote and roll call to adjourn. Okay, so Thomas?
He fell asleep.
He's right there.
Maylee,
Yes.
Thomas, yes. Larissa,
Yes,
David,
He left.
it was past his bedtime.
Shirley,
I agree.
Deborah, not here. Tatiana, not here. Paul,
Yes.
Heidi,
Yes.
Ricky,
Yes.
and Carmen.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Have a great night.
Night.
Okay, bye-bye.
Night.